Hello, everybody. How's it going? It is Annette the Peacemaker, and I am coming to you live on my Facebook timeline, my personal one, and on YouTube at Annette the Peacemaker, and also on Facebook at the Yang Gang Report Live, which we also call YGRL. So, how is everyone today? It is a lovely day in our neighborhood. The sun is shining. It's kind of crispy in the air. I live in southern Arizona, if you don't know that about me, but I do. And it is pretty warm and all that. So, um, in a few minutes here, we're going to go cruise around the internet and look at all the different Yang news that's available to us. And, but first, okay, why is Yang promoting vaccine OD? What is OD? Vaccine ID? Sandra, I'm not sure what you mean. But, oh. Yang is, okay, so, Sandra is asking, why is Yang promoting vaccine? She means ID here. Yeah, so there will be a time in our very near future where it will be required for us to show vaccines in order to do things like travel on an airplane or whatever it is, okay? Like he suggested, like a big baseball game or a concert or something like that. And so private businesses will be allowed to require that in order to enter their venue, okay? Some, not all, but some, like in a big arena situation, it might be prudent to show that people have been vaccinated and that they are not there to infect anybody else around them. So, why would it not be just really convenient to have that information on an app on our phone, just like you put your boarding pass on your phone, so you can just go boop when you walk through boarding at the airport? Or I guess I haven't been to a movie theater in years and years, but I guess you get your movie tickets now on an app on your phone and stuff like that, So it was really just a suggestion of convenience to keep up with the modern times. Okay. Okay, great. So, Sandra, I am not familiar with you. I'm not sure where you are coming from, but okay, so that's not the marker of a free state. That's totalitarianism. Medical discrimination is not accepted by the Geneva Convention or the UN. Okay, well, that's not really what he was suggesting. He was suggesting that we make showing records in certain situations more convenient. That's it. Okay, so somebody came to argue today. Holy cow. So do you support many people being in the outside of society due to free medical choices? Okay, so I just got over having COVID. Okay, I am super duper careful. I wear my mask all the time. I like bathe in hand sanitizer. I take all the vitamins. I do all the right things. I barely ever leave my home. I am like here like 90% of the time, and I still manage to get COVID. So, what? Okay. So, if I were to go to a really large function like a baseball game, which is unlikely, but let's just pretend that I'm going to the baseball game And I want to be sure, as do the people that own the baseball arena, also want to be sure that infected people are not coming in to that space to infect everybody else around them. So I think also it was probably just somewhat of a temporary measure, like until we can get COVID under control. If you want to be able to go to the dang baseball game, we're going to have to do something in order to make sure that everybody at the baseball game is safe and no one's going to die for watching the baseball game. So we have to find some sort of efficient and convenient way to be able to show that information. There might come a time where we've just got like some little laser pointer thing that they just pointed at you and they find out whether you're negative or positive, like we see in the movies. They're just like, boop, oh, you're clean, go on in. Because you know what? I was asymptomatic the entire time that I had COVID. Had I not been tested, I would have never even known that I had it. And I could have gone out and just infected everybody that I came into contact with because I was carrying it. I was shedding the virus, but nobody was forcing me to stay home. I did. I quarantined myself. I didn't sleep in my own bed for 11 nights. 11 nights. And I slept on my sofa, and in this other house. You don't know me. It's a long story. We have a unique living situation. So I stayed in a separate house away from my family for 11 days. On the 11th day, I came out. So, yeah. Okay. So, but there was no way for anybody around me to be able to tell. So if I were a selfish person that didn't care about other people, I could have said, F it, I'm going out to the Walmart. What the heck? Who cares? None of this is real. So I'm going to go into the Walmart and I'm going to put my virus all over everything that I touch and all in the air, all around me, because maybe I don't feel like wearing a mask either. Because whatever, because those people exist, right? So it would behoove us as a society to be able to differentiate from the people who don't give a shit about other people and the people who do. Okay, so Sandra, you can remain a free. Okay, Sandra. Okay, so she's glad I'm well. Well, that's nice. Love you, make your choices, free society, we must maintain our liberty. As symptomatic has been denied by CDC now. Okay, so you are free to remain free. Okay, you are free to make your own choices. But when your choices come into my life, when your choices affect my life in a life or death situation, because I'm also a cancer survivor, so I'm immunocompromised, and amazingly, I didn't have any symptoms. I'm astounded that I didn't, honestly. We all thought it was going to be the worst because of my cancer. So, no, I mean, okay. I don't want to mark people. I cannot even believe that we're going. Okay. This has nothing to do with Nazis or the Holocaust. There is a pandemic that is killing large numbers of people. very large numbers of people. I happen to be extremely lucky to have not suffered through any of it, okay, even though I was positive. But because I have respect, so what, she's not, okay, this, I feel like you're just trolling, honestly. Okay, he didn't ever say a COVID tattoo, ever. He said an app on your phone that you can just show, like, when, have you ever flown on an airplane? Have you ever had your boarding pass on your phone so you can just walk right through? That's what he was talking about. Not this. I'm sorry, but it is not the same. It is not the same at all. Oh. Okay, so she says she wants to understand. I don't listen to Bill Gates. I'm sorry. I think that this Yang suggestion, which was merely just sort of like a brainstorm, he's like, hey, you know, if we want to start going to things and we want to make sure that everybody around us is safe, why don't we think of a way that we can show that we've been vaccinated and that it's safe for you to come into this society, this crowd. Nobody would force you to do anything. If you don't want to go to a place where such a thing would be required, then you don't have to go there. These are like private businesses, you know. I used to own a beauty salon. We were in relatively close quarters. You know, we're right up on top of each other. It would be within my rights as a business owner to say, hey, let's make sure that everybody's safe here and let's make sure nobody is sick. And I don't know. I'm not the one that came up with the idea, but really it was just a brainstorm. I don't have all the answers, but if it's something as simple, okay, so I just admitted that we will be outside of society. How is that not the same as a star? I really think that it has been carried so far out of proportion. You have to show your children's vaccination records when you register them in public school. You have to show your vaccination records if you travel overseas and go to other countries. Sometimes you have to show your vaccination records to get a job, okay? Maybe in the health industry, whatever it is. No matter, there are many situations where we might be required to show our vaccination records. I don't have my vaccination records from when I was a kid. I'm an old lady. I don't have that. If I wanted to go travel to another country, I couldn't. Do you know that I went to like 8 elementary schools and I've lived in 8 states? Do you know how hard it would be for me to track that down? Now, what if, stay with me here, what if there was a super convenient app on my phone that I could just say, oh yeah, here's my vaccination records. Okay, good, you're cool, go on in. So, like, it really isn't so much, it's really just, it was just a brainstorm idea that he just threw out there because whether you like it or not, it is going to be required at some point in our lives. At some point. Okay. Okay, so I was really not prepared for this attack today at all. I have not decided. Okay, Sandra, dude, like chill, man. So you're speaking from the perspective of someone who has decided to take it. So I have not decided to take it. You don't know anything about me at all. You don't know anything about me. I have not decided to take it. You're comparing an app on a phone to the Holocaust. I mean, come on. Okay. Someone who has decided that people that don't or don't want to wear a mask are not moral people. So how do your judgments sway your decisions versus the republic that we live in that is based on laws and gives us freedom of liberty in life and the pursuit of happiness? Why is my liberty not end it my skin in my face? Lewis, you're not helping, man. Either the app on the okay, here we go. I really just came here to like look at Yang's fucking Twitter, man. I did not come here for this. This is not what I came here for today. Okay, so no, I'm comparing either the app on the phone, the tattoo, or an ID card that they are now giving to the Jewish Star, and how they both are meant to construct some people inside a society and to construct people outside. And in your own comments earlier, you admit that, and I celebrated it. Andrew Yang isn't for mandatory anything. He is for good technology, which helps make everything easier for everyone. Exactly. That's exactly it. Man. If I'm unprepared to discuss the issue in full, maybe you should get fully informed before you promote it. I wasn't promoting it. You brought it up. You brought it up. I said nothing about it. Damn. All right. Yes, thank you, Lewis. Okay, Sandra's on fire. Oh, yay. All right. Okay, so I'm moving on now. Y'all can watch if you want. Okay, so what I came here to do was check out Twitter and YouTube and stuff like that. And so that's what I'm going to do. Okay, hold on, Jacqueline. Oops. Copy to clipboard. Paste. Okay, so Faye says, in Taiwan, people are healthy and they kept their 2021 Happy New Year fireworks at the Taipei 101, largely due to their smart use of technology to avoid coronavirus infection pandemic in their country. So how did they do that? I mean, did they just can you expand on that just a little bit? Lewis, I don't really care, okay? You don't have to rub my face in it. I was not prepared for the conversation, okay? Does that like you get off on that? Jesus Christ on a stick. All right. Hello, Jacqueline. I guess my show has been completely hijacked, and I'm not doing any of the things that I came here to do. So fuck it. Let's go for it. What you want to talk about? Turn your mic on, darling.
Okay, is it working now?
Yep, I can hear you now.
Okay. Okay. No, that's why I wanted to jump on, because I saw that you were getting kind of dogpiled on and attacked. I just wanted to put it out there that, you know what, I've really lost my sense of humor with this whole thing. All right, because I'm a diabetic. And I have the right to go to the store and get food and go to medical appointments that I need to go to as a diabetic without having to freaking die just because other people want to be selfish fucksticks and infect people because they're right. I saw parades of anti-maskers invading a Target out in Arizona, bullying the other shoppers. That was in my news feed today. Okay? Bullying the other shoppers.
Doing what? No, I just didn't hear you all the way. Go ahead.
And these anti-maskers were bullying the other shoppers in the Target out in Arizona, out in your state where you live, where Angelo lives, and Brendan.
Yep.
Many of our other Yang Gang friends, right?
Yep.
Not cool. Okay, they're going out and they're bullying people. In small towns, okay, there are medical professionals that are leaving medically underserved areas, like where I live, because of the anti-masking bullying and stuff going on. People that work, you know, in the profession of caring for others who get sick should not be faced with death threats and vandalism of their cars and all kinds of, you know, horrific crap and harassment for saying, hey, look, you know, to get this pandemic under control, you kind of got to wear a mask if you go out. You know, I mean, it's gotten to the point where we're seeing medical professionals being bullied to the point where they're leaving. And you know what that means in medically underserved regions of the country? Yeah. That means other people who need medical care not related at all to COVID end up paying with our lives. With our lives.
Right.
You know what? Someone else's freedom to swing their fist ends where my nose begins. I'm sorry. That's just the way it is. And I literally give zero fucks about anybody's feels about it at this point.
Yeah. So let's think about this. So when I tested positive for COVID, the day before that, I had gone to on Monday and Thursday, I went into town and gave family haircuts for my immediate family, my daughter and my family, for the holidays. You know, for those that don't know, I've been a hairstylist for like 30 some odd years, so I still do haircuts sometimes. And so I did that. And then I ran my regular errands, you know, so I went to like the gas station. I went to like 3 or 4 different stores, and I was in direct contact with all of the people in all of the stores that I went to. And I was in direct contact with, like, very close contact with my immediate family. There were 8 people that were exposed. And then the very next morning, I tested positive for COVID. The day before, I was positive for COVID then. And had I known if there was some sort of way that they could test us like more frequently, that's one thing. One thing that I do wish is that we had a more efficient way to test, you know, like the little testing guns. You see them like in the Asian, like in China and stuff, right? Don't they have the little kind of laser gun type of thing? I'm not very tech savvy. I think that there are ways to test faster and more efficiently using technology.
I'm not sure, but it's just, I mean, we're talking about the deadliest pandemic since the Spanish flu of 1918. We're talking about, you know, now the government didn't help by refusing to cut loose some helicopter money for everybody in the form of an emergency UBI that would have kept small mom and pop businesses solvent, unpaid caregivers solvent, people who lost gig work solvent, you know, the whole gamut. All right. That we could have had Yang, right? I mean, it just, but the thing that of it that really bothers me with all of this is that is this both sides argument, which, you know, which I outright flatly reject. I'm sorry. It's not both sides to blame for this politicizing of a pandemic. There is one and only one side that is responsible for selfishly, deliberately infecting anyone and everyone else they please with a deadly disease in the name of freedom. Okay. And you know what? I don't look kindly on that. We have laws on the books that if you knowingly and deliberately infect someone else with HIV/AIDS, you can be criminally charged for that shit. Okay. There's a reason for that. Okay.
Yeah. I was thinking about that because people are doing that. They're going out and like spitting on people and stuff now. And I already mentioned that to my husband. I'm like, this is just like back in when AIDS was new and people were doing that, you know?
Yeah. And the thing is that this society is just so broken. I found a piece from somebody that I follow on Medium that kind of explains it. And it's that America is founded on such a culture of extreme individualism and freedom, where freedom is taken to mean you can do whatever you want to vulnerable people, and that's okay. Get yours at all expense. You know, the well-being and lives and rights of others be damned.
Right.
All right. That's not freedom. That's not freedom. You know, any more than dumping toxic waste in my drinking water is your freedom. You know, nobody has the freedom or the right to do that shit. Okay.
Right.
And anybody who has a problem with the concept of social and collective responsibility and the common good, as far as taking care of each other in society, then they are feel free to fuck right the hell off out of society and go live on a private island, you know, and not be part of society. They're more than welcome to do that. But you want to live in a civilized society where people can earn incomes and go out on dates and go out to restaurants or bars or whatever, then there are things that you have to fucking do.
Yeah.
You know,
we're going to have to make some sort of change because what we're doing now is not working at all.
No.
At all. Some sort of change needs to happen. So maybe somebody has a better idea. If Yang's idea is equal to the Holocaust, then how does somebody else?
That's propose? Also deeply offensive to me, considering that my grandparents fled the Holocaust from Belarus. Okay, They had the Soviets, troops from Stalin on one side who wanted to do them in. They had the Nazis, the Nazi troops from the other side. They'd be turning over in their graves if they knew what this country had, would be like, for me as their last surviving member of the family. Okay. I mean, this is just downright pathetic. And for anybody to liken an app on a phone or on your driver's license or non-driving state ID or whatever the fuck to signify whether or not you've been vaccinated and for what, and liken that to the Jewish star that my people were forced to wear, that half of my family freaking perished during the Holocaust. That to me is deeply offensive. And these selfish fucksticks that want to make their freedom and quote liberty at the expense of other people's lives, and liken things like Andrew Yang's suggestion about an app or a ID card saying whether or not you've been vaccinated, likening that to the Jewish Star of David that marked half of my family for death. I really take exception to that. And I'm not going to be nice about it. That's insulting. Mm-hmm. And it's uncalled for. And it is an argument that's not even based in any kind of logic at all. At all.
Mm-hmm. Like, here's how I thought of it. The app situation. All right. So I have my cancer records. Okay. So I had cancer like 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And my cancer records are like, it's like a book, man. It's like 250 pages long. If somebody requests my cancer records, like, it's a huge, huge hassle, right? So if there was a way to digitize those records, and then I have like a protected app that nobody can get into, and my records are protected, and then I end up going to a new oncologist here in Arizona, which is what I'm thinking about. Like, I'm thinking about transferring from my Montana oncologist to Arizona. The only thing holding me back is the transferring of the records. It's just like my primary doctor here now. I've got a primary care doc, and she has requested my records from Montana twice and still hasn't gotten them. And she wants to be able to know, so she can treat me as my primary care doc. She wants to know my medical history and my history with the cancer. It directly impacts how she cares for me. So, but if it were all in a nice little thing, and then they have this little scanner thingy that just like scans it and puts it in their computer, and then poof, it's done. Oh my God. Can you imagine that? And then like same with like in an emergency situation. What if I get in a car crash and they got to know some shit about me? They got to know about this blood clot in my head. They need to know about like my ostomy bag down here and so on. They need to know shit about me like right now.
That's why I gotta wear a medical. I gotta wear a medical alert bracelet as a diabetic.
Yeah.
My doctor's contact info on it. If I travel, which I don't, and to be honest with you, I'm just so disgusted at the behavior that I've seen from other people. I mean, COVID has really, really ripped off America's mask and shown me who the majority of Americans really are. And I'll tell you, outside of a few a handful of close, good friends that I made in Yang Gang, there isn't really anybody else I'd really want to go out my front door to deal with. Yeah, quite frankly, people, I mean, that disgusted that majority. I would be happy to socially distance myself permanently, because that's how.
Yeah, I'm very, very used to. Now, I live in a very small community, very, very small.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty tight knit community, and everybody is really helpful with each other. We're all very community oriented, and we've got like really active community pages like, hey, I've got a bunch of free firewood. If you come and grab it, you can have it, you know, and it's just like super nice. Just come take this wood away from me. And then everybody is satisfied. So I've lived in 8 states. I don't even know how many cities. I've probably lived under at least 50 roofs, at least, you know, with just off the top of my head. And never, ever, ever have I had neighbors as kind as the neighbors that I have right now. Like super, like my neighbor across the way.
And you're lucky.
Also. Yeah, very lucky. I was actually shocked because a small town is really hit or miss, right? So this town, I am lucky that we landed right here, because this town gives me hope that not all is lost. You know,
well,
and
I'll tell you, in many other small towns, I've seen people reporting that people who want to wear masks, including people who are medically vulnerable, they are literally bullied by the anti-maskers, and because they live in a small town where the majority of their neighbors are Trump supporters, or the majority of their neighbors are believe that COVID is a hoax and blah, 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 blah. They're literally, they literally, they can't even get another job because there's no doing that. There's no place to escape or hide when you live in a small town. And for many people, especially now with the economic devastation this pandemic caused, most people can't afford to just pick up and relocate and start afresh somewhere else. You know, so I mean, it's like you've got this situation where in other small towns, you've got people literally being targeted and bullied because you've got, you know, the situation where like everybody else's kids knows your kids, and everybody, you know, goes to the same supermarket, the same church, the same, you know, whatever. And anybody who wears a mask, it's taken as a political statement. It's taken as being anti-Trump, and there's been a lot of intimidation and bullying and threats, you know, and this is, you know, and I'm so sick and tired of hearing it's both sides, the both sides argument. No, it's not. There is only one side that's responsible for bullying people into being put at risk for getting horribly ill.
I'd like to put this comment up. Okay, are you aware of the double-blind studies comparing vaccine takers to cancer occurrences? I hope you look. My sister is a survivor. Please take careful care. The Med Alert is to help you, not exclude you. Am I hearing you want to permanently distance non-vaxxed? Where's the line? Limits. Okay, so hold on. Let me go first, and then I know Jacqueline. Okay, so I don't take the flu vaccine, no shingles vaccine, no pneumonia vaccine. They made me take the flu shot once while I was going through chemo, because I got an infection and my white blood cell count plummeted. It landed me in the hospital for a week, and I ended up having to have just like a minor surgery to take care of that infection and whatever. And so my immune system was so weak. So they pretty much just gave me the flu shot. I was hot about it. Let me tell you, I was not happy about it. that was the first and only time I've ever taken it. And it was just kind of just given to me, and it didn't really cause me any harm at that point, and I don't have cancer now and whatnot. So I just wanted to say that about me, and I don't take those vaccines. I did all the ones when I was a baby that were required to go to school, and everything's fine with that, other than my fear of needles that stems from an early vaccination.
As a diabetic who's over age 50, I get free flu and pneumonia vaccines every year, and I've never had a problem, and I'm quite grateful that I've gotten to have them. Okay. I'm sorry everybody else hasn't had a positive experience, but it's like if everybody else would just keep their damn germs to themselves and not feel entitled to go out and get others sick, maybe we wouldn't have situations like this. And there's something I wanted to mention, because I read something that was kind of that's actually on point, 100% very germane to what we're talking about here. And that is how Americans really got the wrong idea about freedom, that like people really don't get it. And this guy who writes on Medium, he's pretty good. He points out that, Americans have been martyrs for a certain idea of freedom that's actually a false definition of freedom. And he says, and I quote, and I'm going to read this to you: "They are willing to sacrifice anything, and I mean anything, including themselves, their families, their health and wealth, their futures, their towns and cities, and their democracy. But what good is freedom if it's just the right to self-destruct?" I would add, what good is freedom if it's the right to self-destruct and destroy others and take others' lives and freedoms away? America has become obsessed with freedom, the freedom being freedom. The idea of freedom is the removal of all restraint, the right to harm others, the ability to do anything you please, no matter how destructive, toxic, foolish, or insane. COVID is a jaw-dropping example of it. Think about the example: the right to believe COVID doesn't exist, the right to not have to wear a mask, the right to not have to lock down. All of these effectively add up to the idea that Americans should be free to infect anyone they please with a lethal disease.
Right.
This is his take on it. And he says, why is America the only rich society in the world that doesn't have any effective public goods? No functioning healthcare, retirement, higher ed, so forth. Because of freedom. I won't pay for their healthcare, education, or retirement. Why not? They're weak. Their liabilities and burdens, they cost me money. I don't care. I won't reward weakness and laziness. Such people need to be punished, and I should be free to not have to support the weak. So goes the logic of the average American. Needless to say, we don't look really good to other people in the world right now.
Oh, yes.
Okay. And he says, so goes the logic of the average American. The idea of freedom is something like this. Freedom means a gun, a beer, and a Bible, and no rights for women and minorities. But textbooks and medicine and good food and water, those take away your freedom. Okay. This is what this fellow, and he lives over in Europe. He actually had lived for several years in the United States when he was completing his education here. But this is what he's observing. Okay. And, he says that other countries do not have this warped idea of social Darwinism and me at all costs. And he ties it back to the origins of, how this nation was formed. And it was basically, and I will say this, he doesn't use those words, but I do, because it explains it a lot simpler. America was it wasn't founded by people who were fleeing religious persecution. It was founded by people who made the rules for everybody else. And the people who were the quote, founding considered the founders, the movers and the shakers, they were the second sons of British and European nobility, who by primogeniture, okay, were excluded from inheriting anything of their father's estates back in Britain or Europe. Primogeniture is something that arises out of 4th century Salic law, which states that only the firstborn son inherits everything, and the second son doesn't get anything, and daughters, forget it. Daughters don't get shit. Daughters are just reproductive chattel that get passed along like the pots and pans to somebody else. So this long-standing practice of primogeniture resulted in a lot of disgruntled second sons coming here with money and land grants from the Pope, from Pope Alexander VI, and from the kings of crowned heads of Europe, who had established colonies here in the New World. And they received land grants, and they came here, and these were the ones who basically set up the rules for the system for everybody else. And then Europe began, and Britain began using the colonies here as their dumping grounds for getting rid of their poor. So you had a lot of people who, suffered, intergenerational trauma from poverty and the oppression they suffered as a result of that. I mean, Google the borders, Google some of that stuff written by Joe Badgent, who's now dead, and other historians who wrote about, the submerged 10th and the origins of, quote, poor white trash and all this stuff. The poor were treated horribly. They were discarded here. But the guys who called all the shots were these second sons. These were the guys who owned slaves. These were the guys who, amassed great fortunes. And then when they didn't want to pay any taxes back to the crown and obey any of their monarchs' laws over here in the colonies, they fought a, quote, revolution over it. All right. Now, this is not the Sunday school version everybody gets taught in public school, but that is the actual fact. That's the actual history, straight up. And, basically these second sons, they didn't want to be told no. They did not want to be told, no, you're not allowed to grab the lands that belong to indigenous people west of the Appalachians because those people have a treaty agreement with the crown. And no, you can't, import more slaves from Africa. We've abolished that in the mother country and blah, blah, blah. They were basically spoiled, entitled people who didn't want to be told no. They wanted to get theirs. And this is where this whole concept of manifest destiny came from. This is where a lot of these social ills that we're still struggling with, that we've never come to terms with today. It boils down to these second sons who, in order to compensate for being excluded from their father's titles and estates under primogeniture, came here to seek their fortunes, and they didn't care at whose other people's expense. Whether it was women, whether it was black slaves, whether it was the original North Americans, the indigenous people, the First Nations, Native Americans, who were, genocided out of existence by, 90%? I think it was by the end of the 19th century, 90%, of the original North Americans were killed, and this wasn't by happenstance, or it didn't occur in a fit of absent-mindedness. It was definitely by design. And history bears this out. Right. The data bears this out. The facts bear this out. So what we're dealing with today with this concept of freedom is that it comes down from those with privilege, with the most, those with privilege who feel entitled to do whatever the fuck they want to other people, and to hell with their rights and lives. That's where that
So
comes
here's
from.
where I want to jump in here then. So when I hear the word freedom, I always wonder, like, how are we free? You know, we are from our birth certificate to our social security number to our death certificate and every permit and license and everything that we need, like to collect rain in a barrel. And I understand, like, licensing, like hunting licensing, and having controls and limitations for the hunting. I understand that is necessary, right? I get that. Otherwise people would just, like, kill all the damn buffaloes, and so I feel like, but we have to have some sort of license or certificate, or pay some sort of tax to do anything and everything. Literally collecting the rain in the barrel, that just blows my mind. And so to that point, she had mentioned earlier about permanently quarantining, basically. Well, Jacqueline and I both are at stages in our lives where we've seen enough of what society is like, and we choose to stay at home a lot. Like, we bought a property out in the middle of nowhere, right on the edge of Mexico, just in case we needed to escape one day. And it's just a hop skip down the road. And in case we needed to go off grid. So we have our own well, we have our own electric, we've got solar power. Yep, they say I need to get a passport. I don't even have that. But, like, they let you into Mexico and they'll let you back into the United States if you have just, like, a proper driver's license, but they don't like it. They would prefer a passport. But, like, we did that on purpose. So, like, I'm okay with staying home. That 11 days of isolation really was not that difficult for me because I'm used to that. Like,
a lot of people with who are immune compromised have to leave homes to go to earn a living, and they don't have the privilege of having, upper class, professional type of work from home jobs where they can work remote. And it's like they're not being economically taken care of. Neither is anybody else at this point, except for the Mitch McConnell's buddies, but and Nancy Pelosi's buddies. But the thing is that we have the right to not be prisoners in our own home. Okay, there's 30 million diabetics, and we all vote. And that's just the diabetic community alone. There's other forms of immune compromise. There's people with lupus. There's people like you who are cancer survivors. And you know what? When we're talking about something for the common good, it's like this. You want to live in a society where you can enjoy, the things that you take for granted that living in a 21st century civilized society offers, then you have to you have to be a part of the social contract and take care of others by not being too damn selfish, to not infect others with a lethal disease. I'm sorry, not sorry. That's just the way it is. You don't like it? Go buy your own private island and get the fuck out of society.
I've been dreaming about a private island for like 25, 30 years, man. I've been talking about it forever. And even like when we were campaigning for Yang, I kept saying, you guys, when we get UBI, we're going to get a Yang Gang Island, man. And we'll just, like, let's go. And yeah. So That would be great. We could just call it Humanity Island and
yeah,
whatever.
I mean, you know, I'm just really just fed up and disgusted with everything that I see going down here, you know, about this. And when I talk to expats who don't want to come back to visit, even to visit, if we can ever get COVID under control.
Okay, wait. Check this out. No, I am not for that. I was talking about removing myself from society. Y'all can stay here and fight it out yourselves. I would rather go and buy my own private island. When we were looking for property, I swear to God, we had the money. We could, at that time we did, and we could have bought a private island, but I didn't want to leave my family, and my family was too chicken shit to move farther away. But Jacqueline, we had the money to buy a fucking private island, and we should have done it, you know, and then let everybody else figure it out. And we're just going to go and live our humanity first values. And then I would, you know, strongly vet not just anybody could come.
Yeah.
It's my private island. Only the people that, you know.
I mean, I have a
I see. Oh, she meant you, not me. She meant you. Ha ha. Yeah, you are for exiling the anti-vaxxers.
I am for definitely saying, hey, look, if you're a sociopath and you're a selfish fuckstick who feels entitled to infect or put at risk other people with no thought for our lives and our families and the people that depend on us, then you can fuck right the hell off. You can fuck right the hell off. I give zero fucks about your feels. You know what? And guess what? Guess what? Science and facts give zero fucks about your feels too. This is not the time to be a spoiled, entitled child. We're in the middle of a deadly pandemic. Grow the fuck up.
Check this out. Can you see that, Jacqueline?
Yeah. I don't give a shit.
I know you don't.
I literally don't give a shit. I've been called worse by actual commies, so she can fuck right the hell off too. I really don't. I really give zero fucks at this point. You know, Lewis, Sandra, you're a selfish sociopath. How's that? You're a sociopath.
Lewis,
you feel entitled to infect people.
Girl fight.
You're a typhoid Mary looking for a place to happen, and you feel entitled to do so. Go fuck yourself. From me and my family.
All right. So I'm done talking about the vaccine stuff. So I'd like to move on. You want to hang out with me and look at other stuff, and let's try to lighten the mood just a wee bit?
Yeah, let's look at some cool stuff. Let's look at some really cool
stuff. So we're moving. Sandra, we're moving on, okay? So you can keep talking, but we're moving on. Okay, so I want to share the screen. Okay. All right, so here's my home page. And then let's go see what Andrew Yang is up to today. I usually write down the number of followers each day, but I do it later on at night, like at the end when I'm shutting down for the night. Mm-hmm. So it has like all day to accumulate the numbers. make it a little bit bigger. But looks like he's gotten about 1,000 more since I last wrote down. Roughly 1,000 more. So that's cool. Oh, let me hide this a little bit. Okay, so this being this close to $2,000 cash relief for tens of millions of Americans with 2/3 of the House, 5 Republican senators, and the current president supporting is maddening. It is. If the Senate does not get this done, there will be a massive price to pay. The people can see.
Yes, yeah, this is where I think the government actually helped exacerbate this whole problem because, it's excuse me. It is beyond irresponsible to force people to close their businesses and deprive themselves of an income and of a paycheck to live without compensating them. We have laws like for eminent domain. If the government has to take your property because the railroad needs to run a line through it or something like that, you're supposed to be compensated at fair market value for any property that has to be taken or used for a public good, for a public interest, whether it's a railroad or an interstate or something to that effect. Now, I viewed in the same vein that it was highly irresponsible for the government to get on its horse and drop some helicopter money, not targeted money. This is where I think the whole idea of means testing is so specious. The idea that, and it's largely right wingers that have been raising this. Well, we don't want to give money to those who don't need it, and it's the middle class and upper classes who disproportionately benefited from the last COVID stimulus check. You know what? This is coming from people who, without batting an eye, gave the lion's share of all COVID relief funds to date to the top 1/10 of the top 1%. Understand me. They didn't bat an eye over that, and they sure as hell didn't implement any means testing. There are several Congress people whom we know of who directly and indirectly benefited from a COVID windfall of $500,000 and more. Okay, without having to prove jack or squat as far as meeting any means to get it, and the people were offered, the people who were excluded from even the PUA benefits. The people were offered basically a $1,200 check, and not even everybody got that. I think our friends, the Grace and James Stewart, if I'm not mistaken, they never saw, a $1,200 their $1,200 COVID checks. So when people make this argument that it has to be means tested or that it's they can't give money to everybody, including those who have $100,000 a year jobs, my response is, hey, look, that's not a valid argument when you didn't bat an eye about dropping, hundreds times that amount into the hands of a very tiny few of the wealthiest people in this country who certainly did not need it. You weren't worried about means testing them or about the amount or about giving them money, making them lazy and blah, 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 blah. So this other argument does not wash. And if we had anybody in Congress that had half a brain and a pair of balls or ovaries or whatever, however you want to put it, okay, they would have stood up and said, no, everybody needs to get taken care of right now. We're going to give $2,000 a month to every adult with a Social Security number or an EIN number, a taxpayer ID number. That's a unique identifier. Mm-hmm. And we're going to just do that until we can get this thing under control. Because if people could have afforded to stay home and close their businesses or afforded to not have to go work in minimum wage frontline jobs and what have you, or whatever, Okay, if there would have been that option available, that people would have been taken care of economically, they would have been supported economically to stop, to do their part to stop the spread, and starve this virus of what it needs. What this virus needs is living hosts, right?
Right.
Now, this is where the government dropped the ball. And Andrew Yang himself said, that he had to actually go back and rethink the amount of UBI, because for a lot of people, it would be replacing and be their sole source of income. And many of these people, their businesses or their jobs or their gigs are not coming back ever. They're not coming back. We have 19 million people to date. We have 80 million who've lost their health care, who have no health care. We have 19 million who were facing losing their incomes completely. That's not counting those who were already without any income, who were permanently pushed out of the economy since the crash of 2008, whom this society has completely ignored, whom the media and government has completely ignored. There's another 40 or 50 million facing utility shutoffs and eviction after the end of January, because the little bit that is being given is not enough to put people on their feet and keep people housed and keep them in utilities and groceries. Never mind, stimulate the economy on buying extras. This is common sense. And we wouldn't be facing a situation of possible second lockdowns and all this other stuff if the government would have taken care of all the people with giving everybody $2,000 a month starting back in March, and paid people to just stay home, paid people to do their part to take care of the rest of society, so to stop this pandemic. But what really gets me is how whenever we try to talk about this, the very first argument I hear raised is, well, the comfortably off white collar professional middle class, they don't need it. Well, you know what? There are people that were sitting quite pretty last year. Well, not last year, but 2019, before COVID hit. And then COVID hit and they lost everything. But because they made too much money in 2019, they didn't even qualify for a $1,200 check, nor did they qualify for any unemployment or PUA. And look at the amount of problems that happened as a result of that. We're seeing it right now. We would have had this under control. Look at New Zealand and Australia. Okay, they took care of their citizenry with an emergency UBI of sorts, and now the people in those countries, their lives are almost back to normal, as in pre-COVID normal. But then again, those are also cultures that weren't founded in a sociopathic level of selfishness and me firstism that the United States is. I'm really embarrassed to be an American right now, I'll tell you that. I'm embarrassed because of the behavior of so many other Americans, and how this not just, makes us look on the world stage, but the harm and the trauma and the pain and the suffering that it's causing for so many other Americans. And, people, please just fucking act right. You want to protest something, instead of protesting masks at a Target, protest your damn government who voted to give the top 1%, billions of no strings attached money, while giving you chicken feed and quabbling over that. And quabbling, over whether or not to even give you the chicken feed that's not enough. You want to protest something, protest that. Protest lawmakers who cock-blocked getting your own money back. That's my final word on the matter.
Sandra is saying that there's like some farm thing in Oregon. Suddenly Farm 2029. All food is free for the asking. Come to Oregon.
Well, 331
sorry.
million Americans can't relocate all to that farm in Oregon.
Yeah, exactly. Like, how are we going to get there? I mean, like we've opened up our intention was with buying this ranch this was before Yang Gang, but I've always wanted to make like a community living homestead and stuff like that. And so we've tried to do that. And, you know, like it's been more challenging than I expected to find people that we are really cohesive with.
Compatible with, yeah.
It's been very compatible with, and that we share the same goals and ideas. Recently we're anywhere near the same goals or ideas and stuff like that. So like, I'm going to take a break. I'm not going to have anybody come stay with us for a hot minute, you know.
Yeah, well, you can't.
And whatnot.
Yeah.
So I can't afford to carry anybody anymore. So,
well, not only that,
you know,
but the fact that until we get COVID under control, I mean, there was a friend from Yang Gang, two friends actually, one from Arizona and one from Washington State, that wanted to fly out here to Pennsylvania to visit us. And, you know, it's like, well, COVID, you know, made that pretty much a no-go. It's like, nope, we'll wait. And
I know. I'm supposed to go back to Montana for my next cancer scan and oncology visit in April. And I've been trying to, you know, wrap my head around that. Normally I just hop on Allegiant and fly there, but like,
there are people that are perfectly healthy.
Right now. No way.
There are people that are perfectly healthy that are like, there was one, it's really sad. This family lost their daughter. She was only 18, perfectly healthy, no pre-existing conditions. And she had taken all the precautions. The only person she saw, you know, which was like in the beginning of December, was she had a brief visit from her boyfriend. Okay. Now the boyfriend tested negative for COVID. Somehow she ended up getting COVID. And she was admitted to the hospital the day before Christmas Eve, and she died the day after Christmas Day.
Aww.
And, you know, this is really sad.
Damn.
Now, you know, this is not an outlier. There's people in their 30s and in their 40s, which is still relatively young, who don't have pre-existing conditions, whom this disease has literally taken out. And then you got people like yourself, who is immune suppressed, who actually tested positive for COVID, and you weren't put flat on your back at all, which I'm glad for, because that's a really horrible.
I'm happy about it. It's just so weird.
Yeah. Now it's like, I'm not taking any chances, and a lot of our friends,
unexpected.
You know, our friends aren't taking chances either.
Amtrak and the Sandra, I have taken Amtrak before, not from Arizona, but I did just discover the Amtrak station in Tucson, which is the nearest one. But Amtrak, in my experience, Amtrak didn't go into Missoula, which is where I need to go. It went into Whitefish. So, but I have looked into it. I don't think it's an easy fix, I don't think it's a straight shot from Tucson to Whitefish or Missoula. So, I don't know. Amtrak would be my first choice over flying on an airplane. I love taking the train, man. Let me tell you. And then bus ticket. Nope. I am not getting on no Greyhound, no how. Absolutely not. That's just like a cesspool of germs. No way.
You know, anytime you're dealing with the mass transit, and I'm not mispronouncing that, I'm deliberately calling it mass transit, because if you look at how passenger flights on planes are routed, it's routed according to air freight transshipment schedules. So what we have is technically a mass transit system, not a mass transit.
Right.
But all the points of contact, if I were to travel anywhere, it would be by a reliable personal vehicle, and I would be minimizing all points of contact between points A and B, B being destination, right? Because it's just every time you're in contact with lots of other people or a hub that lots of other people pass through in transit, you're upping your risk factor exponentially. So
Yeah.
for me, my personal choice would be wait until I can afford a Ford F-150 that's tricked out with a super crew cab and an off-road package and shit. And I'll drive across country and I'll enjoy the scenery. And I will have that thing set up so I can bring my own food, pack my tailgater grill so I can cook my own food so I don't have to stop and eat as much on the way. Because again, that's a point of contact. And I want to minimize that. That's
why we bought RVs when we did have our money back then. And so we bought all these RVs because we didn't know what the future held, you know, and we needed to be able to like pick up and move where we were going to be full-time RVers. But then we realized how incredibly expensive that really was. And I was retired, and we both decided to just be retired. So anyway, here we are. So we ended up buying the property, but we live in our RVs on our own property. So the RVs aren't going to waste. And we can just pick up, and we're gonna make one of them the bug out one.
The bug out one. So. Well, my whole house is designated as a bug out zone. I'm actually tempted. If you ever saw that movie Secondhand Lions, where those two old guys played by Robert Duvall and who the hell was the other guy? I forget his name. But they had signs up: rabid dog, nuclear bomb site, enter at your own risk. You know, they had all these signs up. They were these retired old adventurers, and they ended up taking care of their grandson. But if you never saw the movie Secondhand Lions, well, you know, me and Donnie are the male and female version of those two old guys in Secondhand Lions. Stay out, no trespassing, rabid dogs. Leave us the fuck alone. Because we're that fed up with people's assholeanism. It's like the only people that can come here are people that I know aren't going to just go out of their way to be shitbags to us, you know?
Let's welcome our friend Ariel.
Hey, Ariel.
Hi, guys.
I'm always so happy when Ariel pops in. Like, I'm just like,
I like him too. He's cool. Ariel's cool as fuck. I love getting to hear Ariel. And Ariel's getting to see me with my hair done and a nice red velvet dress on. I'm all decked out.
That's but that's like, I was reading something on your thing, Jacqueline, and you were at a humanity hang, and then and the thing is that like it's kind of funny. Well, like I work with her, so I don't want to like say anything, but you said like Mia was like being a little rude to you or something.
Oh,
or...
yeah, she was a bitch. She was a bitch to me. I won't go on another humanity hang ever. Kiss my ass.
But,
You said that right there.
but like,
cheeks. Both fucking cheeks, dog. Both cheeks.
but she believes in being such a pacifist.
Yeah.
That's kind of.
I mean, it's like I have literally, I've carved out, and I decided there's very few people that are really worthy of my time, of my emotional labor, my intellectual labor. And granted, these are good friends that I met within Yang Gang, like yourself, Annette, and Angelo Mendoza, and Yenny, who's running for office up in Massachusetts. You know, she's a good kid. And, you know, a couple others. But for the most part, there's a lot of people that I've seen, you know, become total assholes and turn it into a cliquish cool kids club where it's like some people, you know, can, you know, get the celebrity treatment and others get silenced or, you know, ignored or whatever. And it made me think about what you were talking about several times with the celebrity culture. And it's like, yeah, my dude is right. Well, it's time we call that shit out too. Say fuck.
Yeah, actually, like I actually made a whole video about like clout culture, and it's such.
I saw it. It was very good, by the way, very good. And that if you get a chance to watch his material on that, I'd really strongly suggest you do it. Very good, very good show, Ariel.
You guys want to take a question from Sandra? Here, let's do it.
Sure.
How does Yang feel about the bill in the U.S. House to lower age of medical consent to 11? I have no idea. I've never heard him speak about that. That seems like something you should probably ask Yang.
I've never heard of that until now.
Yeah, I haven't heard of it until now either. But here's the part that's actually funny. It's like that switching gears. Like when Trump said that, like he was in favor of the 2000. I think now we can get a large swath of the MAGA audience or people to like get on the Yang side now that their guy is no longer going to be in for like 4 years. Although a lot of them are just like straight up jerks and they have no common sense and things. I think there's like a contingent in there that is pissed off, but they don't know what they're pissed off about. So
there's also a contingency in there that's pissed off, and they're not really thrilled with Biden and Harris either.
Right.
You know, and that's why I really reject this whole bullshit with labels.
Yeah, I know. It's stupid.
You know, Sandra accused me of being a commie. Well, she's partly right. I used to be a commie, but I burned my commie card when I became Yang Gang, when I saw how my quote comrades were treating desperately poor people who were supporting Andrew Yang. You know,
right? Yeah,
homeless at Russ from Grassroots Yang Gang was interviewing for the Broke Folk vote. When I saw that, I was like, I was forced to re-examine everything I thought I believed in at that point. You know,
right?
But, you know, the thing is that what I think is that what really needed to have happened, and I liken this to the Centralia fire. And Centralia is it's no longer in existence now, but it used to be a small anthracite coal mining town in north central Pennsylvania. There was an underground, there was a subterranean mine fire that erupted when the Buck Mountain coal vein, which is the largest anthracite coal deposit in the entire world, not the state, not the country, but the whole world, caught on fire when trash was being burned over the Memorial Day weekend back in 1962, which was 5 years before I was born. Well, you had the coal company that owned the mineral rights to everything under the ground in Centralia, including the Buck Mountain coal vein. And then you had the state and local governments, and nobody could agree on coughing up the money that it would have taken to pay to rent a steam shovel and pay for a man's wages to dig out the fire. This is the only way you can actually put out subterranean mine fires. You have to dig it out. Well, they screwed the pooch and they kicked the can down the line so far that to this day that fire is now not even able to be extinguished. Centralia no longer exists. You know, the state revoked its zip code back in 2000, and the last remaining holdout, who was like the 92-year-old mayor at the time he was 92, he's dead now. But that Buck Mountain coal vein fire has gone on, and it's now heading straight for Mount Carmel and Shamokin and Ashland, and it's going to take those little communities out. And it's too far gone to be able to be fixed. It would cost, in terms of money, in terms of practical application to get to it now at this point. And the way I see our government's handling the COVID response, economically, medically, everything is, I see it unfolding as, you know, as another Centralia, except by an order of magnitude worse, you know?
Yeah.
And everybody should have just been getting paid from the get-go.
It just amazes me, like, how this pandemic has really, like, taken the mask off of, like, our government, how, like, incompetent or just downright, like, evil it is for, like, not giving a damn, for just, like, yeah, that's something else. But I think for the UBI movement, though, don't get me wrong, I think this is the pandemic is the best thing that could have happened for it.
Well, I mean, if the COVID thing did not rip the blinders off people's faces and force
then nothing will.
The cost of being a selfish fuckstick, okay, and being an asshole is, then you know what? Then I'm in total despair of anything that will.
Yeah, me too.
Because, you know, a pandemic is not something that you can neatly boil down to, quote, personal responsibility. It's a pandemic, for God's sake.
Well, now they just believe in myths. I mean, well, they always have, but now it just shows that these people are just out of touch with reality, and they'll just if Jim Jones told them to drink the Kool-Aid, they do it with no, you know, qualms.
Yeah, I mean, I sit here in Erie County, you know, where I live, and that's why I took a cue from the movie Secondhand Lines and put up the signs, rabid dogs.
Did they ever catch those lunatics who broke into your house?
No.
Or probably they were just like,
no.
Yeah.
No, but they didn't really get in the house. They just damaged the door and the basement window.
Yeah.
But if they would have gotten in here, because my husband's a consummate pack rat, they would have broken their fucking necks before making it up the basement steps. It's a miracle I haven't broken my own neck in here yet. I mean, it's just, well, it's, what can I say? But, getting back to your question about that thing, I took a stand, you know, for Izzy and for Izzy's friend Militia, because they were right to call out what they were calling out.
Yeah. It's
and
all.
There's been a whole hell of a lot of non-humanity first that I've been seeing from people that claim to be all about humanity first, and it's really been disheartening. You know, it's not the whole of Yang Gang, but it's a considerable chunk. And it's especially troubling when it's members of that chunk who've been publicly recognized and given accolades for their quote contribution to humanity first. Where
Lewis, that's one of my favorite things about her. So he said she curses a lot. And I said that's one of my favorite things. Jacqueline's vernacular is just delightful to me. I love it. I love to read what she writes. I love it. I love to hear you speak, Jacqueline.
It's just because it's no nonsense, and that's what I like the most. It's like some people just say like cursing is the worst thing. No, actively like harming people and like, you know, taking away their human rights is worse than cursing.
Yeah,
I think you draw a line.
Biggest problem is another person's language.
Right.
You know, if your biggest problem is somebody else's language, then you're entirely too fucking privileged, and you really just need to go check yourself before you wreck yourself. That's all I got to say on that.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, you're free to go get earplugs or not listen. You know what I mean?
Yeah. For sure. You know what's funny? I was reading this thing about like capitalism versus super capitalism, but here's the funny thing about it. It says now ownership is a right established by productive use, and ownership is extended to all citizens, where previously it was just the right of an elite minority. Now workers directly own the workplaces where they generate their living. Expanding corporate ownership directly to the workplace entitles workers to leverage the full value of their labor, allowing them to work less for the same amount of wealth. Since they are no longer have to sustain the livelihood of an unproductive parasite in addition to their own needs. Though management and planners may be a necessity in advance, industry managers will be hired by the corporate body of workers and will have to negotiate for a fair compensation with no legal ability to coerce workers to surrender their wealth otherwise. So it's saying that everybody owns instead of just like this upper class. Yeah. But the only thing I have a problem with it is like it's not just like a human should just like own, you know, stuff just flat out right out of the gate. That would be more capitalistic, and that's more like super capitalism would be more like a UBI.
Well, the thing is that, you know, you've got people who are disabled or who've been pushed out of the economy, involuntarily pushed out and excluded.
Yeah.
They have to be compensated for that. You know?
Exactly when it's involuntary. But the funny thing is that when they say with capitalism, like ownership is, you know, established through legal documents recognized by guess who? The government, the same people that socialism said that they should control everything. It's a really
okay, so I'd like to respond to this.
Yeah.
So she says, isn't that why people start businesses, so they can more and fully enjoy the elbow grease of their labor more fully? I think that depends.
Well, you can't
Jeff Bezos put in a whole lot of elbow grease to amass the amount of wealth that he has. No. The people that labor for him created that wealth for him.
But at the same time,
like what I've owned 3 small businesses, 3 beauty salons, and I got to enjoy the elbow grease. I enjoyed the hard work of it, but I tell you what, that was the brokest I ever was. So unless you already have like a chunk of money to get you started, like a good solid nest egg, I had a partner back out on me at my last salon. She was supposed to invest. She was supposed to match the investment. And then so we went through and we got a bunch of stuff on credit and because she was supposed to match me. And then she backed out at the last dang minute and left me $5,000 in debt on opening day. I was $5,000 in debt. Like,
that's awful.
Yeah.
Just out of the gate, right out of the gate. And I was never able to recover from that. I was always clamoring to get out of that $5,000 debt, dude. It was terrible.
Plus, you only worked for it.
Yeah.
And, and then so.
But the thing is that
for that reason, but if you don't already have money or that sort of power,
yeah, but people are born on, like, as they say, third base, and some are born behind the 8 ball. So no, that's not that.
Yeah.
It's not just elbow grease. It's like, do you have something to like open it up to begin with? And it's absolutely ridiculous. And not only that, but like some people have the right. It's just luck that they have someone to tell them how this works and how this doesn't work, and some people don't.
Yeah.
And
right.
Especially when in school, it's never taught to. It's never told like how these things work, right, and how these processes are. And you have a whole system not doing that, Yeah.
I made a mistake. This was a gal that I had worked with for years, and she was super duper on board, and she turned on me up like on a dime. I didn't see it coming at all. I was like, I couldn't even believe it. So it took me at least a year of writing, rewriting, and submitting and resubmitting a business plan to the state of Montana so I could get a grant through vocational rehab to open my business. And I had like an advocate or whatever that helped me through that process. And I made, mine was like a social enterprise. Okay. They made me go to this stupid ass meeting with this super old man who was from like the medieval times, he had no idea. So I go in and I'm like, okay, well, I want to open a social enterprise. I want to have like kind of a nonprofit side or like a community service side of the business, and then like a regular for-profit, so I would donate haircuts to the homeless. I did lots of donations. I donated thousands of haircuts
that was
in my time there. But anyway, so I tell this to the guy, and he looks at me like I have like 3 heads, and he's like, I don't know what you're talking about, and and then I ended up going to the library. I left the Small Business Association and went straight to the library and got like 5 or 6 books about social enterprise, and business hybrids and things like that. So I'm just like, so anyway, I don't know. That was a tangent. I'm really sorry. And then, she's suggesting I do paralegal verbal contract. It's all done and over with. I don't care. That business is closed and whatever. I'm not going to open another business again. I don't think.
I'm chuckling because OVR in my state, Pennsylvania, they're the same clowns that cut out jobs from the newspaper. This is going back in the 1990s after I was injured in an automobile accident and couldn't go back to any kind of physical, labor type of job, including a job that required standing for long periods of time or lifting.
Right.
And after, I incurred all the student loan debt and got an in-demand degree, a STEM degree, and they were supposed to help me with job placement, and their help, note the air quotes here. Their help was to, this guy cut out fucking jobs from the newspaper. Are you for real? I could shit a better job placement program than this. Here I did all these things you told me to do. Instead of going for the degree I wanted, which would have been a law degree, I wanted to be an international human rights lawyer and work on things like treaty law. and stuff like that, and other international law type of things. And and they basically said, well, no, you're poor, you have to get a job and then go back to law school, get a STEM degree, and become a math teacher or something, or a physics teacher, and that this is your ticket, into the middle class. So I got the requisite degree with very decent grades, and never got placed in a job. What I got was this help in the form of this bureaucrat literally taking a nail clippers, these little tiny scissors that you use to clip fingernails with or cut embroidery thread.
What an idiot.
And he was I just shook my head, and that's when I knew that the system was designed to fail the majority of people, that the system was it wasn't a glitch, it wasn't a bug, it was a feature. The system was just designed.
It's shit. Just like Yang said, that these job programs have a success rate of 0 to 15%, and then you have these
generous. He was being generous about
these wrinkled up shit stains that we have in our Congress saying that, oh no, we will just like learn how to win. Like Mitch McConnell. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the question. If UBI is passed, what government requirements on individuals would you feel are reasonable? I would say that it would be reasonable for you to have a social security number.
What about the individual requirements on the government?
Yeah.
Exactly.
God damn it.
What about the individual requirements on the corporate lobbyists and shit?
Yeah.
I think that
I mean, Mitch McConnell got earmarked in this second COVID bill that just got passed billions of dollars for establishing a horse racetrack commission or horse racing commission, and which was at his behest, and all this money to go into racetracks and stuff. And what requirements? Where was the means testing for Ilhan Omar's husband to get over $600,000 in a COVID relief windfall? No. I mean, I'm sorry. Here's the rule: the government has to obey. The government has to obey the same rules as they laid down for the rest of us. Number one, the only reasonable requirement to receive a UBI is have a social security number or an EIN number. A taxpayer ID number of some sort. That would be social security number or EIN that I know of.
Right. Everything else, yeah, that's the thing, and work requirements are bullshit because
And if you end up hurting another person or committing murder or rape or armed robbery or some shit, and you end up in prison, then you don't get your UBI for that time that you're in prison.
Right, and by the way, did you know that one of the Pennsylvania reps died?
Yeah, I know.
But you probably didn't like him anyway.
Oh, yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. There's a couple of congressmen there was a congressman from Louisiana who just died from COVID. He was a young guy, 41 years old, perfectly healthy. He died from this,
I think it was the incoming one.
Yeah, he was. He wasn't even sworn in yet. And that's really sad because, 41 is not really old. And, he had little kids, and granted, he was a Republican, and I'm not too fond of right wingers, but I don't rejoice in anyone's death. I don't rejoice in anyone's suffering. I really don't. I don't relish that at all. And I think it's, really terrible. And that, tragically was probably a death that could have been prevented.
Right.
If there just would have been, a means in place to keep people solvent until we could get through this.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That would solve the problem. but it's
Yeah, I know. How dare we advocate for common sense, which I'm learning with each passing day is, well, not very common.
yeah. It's like common sense over here is like, garlic to Dracula or something like that. It's just like people are like,
Yeah, it's
common
like
sense
holy
bad.
water to Rosemary's Baby.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I wanted to go back. I don't think the LA.
The LA rep.
All right.
What does that mean?
I was going to say something about answering the UBI question, but oops, not that one.
Yeah.
He died from COVID surgery complications. Don't think the LA rep needed UBI provisions. What does that mean?
I think Sandra was saying that the Louisiana congressman didn't need a UBI. Here's the thing. The UBI is a floor.
Oh, he's already wealthy.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
He's wealthy.
I mean,
okay.
The idea here is that it's a floor. It's not a safety net. It's a floor. It's a floor in which you're allowed to build, and that you're not penalized if you get married. You're not penalized if you have cobbled together some gigs to make money. If you are able to, start a business and succeed at it. The idea is that if you fail or if life throws you a pair of snake eyes, it doesn't cost you your life. It doesn't screw your family over for generations. Okay? Into poverty for generations. That's the whole idea. It's a dividend that is, number one, it's payment for use of our data. It's payment for loss of our access to the commons. A lot of these big tech companies that got fabulously wealthy were originally had their research funded by the public trough, by the public taxpayer dollars.
Right.
So, I mean, UBI.
Right. And I've been this. Yang said that we are the owners and the shareholders of this country. Nobody complains when the shareholders of big businesses get a dividend, when they get their monthly or yearly dividend. Nobody freaks out about that. So we are the owners and the shareholders of this country. It's our money.
Wait. I think Sandra's looking at this the wrong way. She's saying life's mistake has been a great teacher. I would not trade it for any money. That's not the point we're making. We're saying that at least you have enough money to make a mistake. Yeah, everybody deserves a chance to make a mistake, but without a UBI, you make one mistake and you're toast. You're gone. But with a UBI, people can make more mistakes because the mistakes won't cost them their life.
People die from poverty in this country. Here's some stats for you.
When that chick left me $5,000 high and dry, if I had UBI, I would have only been 5 months in debt. I would have gotten out of that $5,000 debt with no problems at all, and I wouldn't have struggled for years after the fact, because problem solved. I'd pay off the debt.
Wait, a floor protects from pain of mistakes? No, I don't think so. It protects from it lets people have another chance. If you make a mistake,
making a mistake shouldn't carry a death sentence.
Yes.
When all you've done was try your level best. And,
right.
And a lot of times it's like, well, is it really a mistake or is it something that you really had no control over? I mean, there was a lot of people that, got caught up, economically on the wrong side with this pandemic. Okay. Was this due to any mistake that they made? Did they make a mistake by owning a barbershop, by owning a bar, by owning a hair salon? No. Did they make a mistake by trying to re-enter the workforce after being out, being an unpaid caregiver for disabled or elderly family members or kids, and then try to re-enter so they could economically provide for themselves? No.
Okay, so also, so she doesn't want to pay for our mistakes. pandemic aside, she doesn't want to pay for our mistakes, right? So,
well,
so
I don't
she's
want
been
other
saying
people's
that we
lack of luck and lack of privilege to pay for her luck, her good fortune, and her privilege.
Right.
Fair is fair.
Some people have parents that can afford it, and some people don't. So it's not
We've
fair.
been fortunate. Somebody else's lack of fortune and lack of privilege paid for your slot because there's only a very limited number of good spots in this society. And if you were lucky and nothing really bad happened to you that was enough to set you back permanently, then you were lucky. You were lucky. And other people should not have to suffer and be deprived of what they need to survive and to have a chance in life, just so that you can claim credit for what boils down to luck.
If everyone's getting it, you're not paying for it. Everyone's paying into it, and everyone gets the same thing. You're not paying for anyone's anything. It's just a right of citizenship.
She's thinking of it as welfare. Instead of return on our investment. All of our tax money, like the money is already there. It's just not being allocated properly. I mean, can you imagine?
Hang on a second. Does she know that the thing is that all these like super uber rich people are getting our money anyway and not paying taxes at all? Why the hell are you looking at your fellow citizens saying like, "Oh, I'm not paying for them. I'm not paying for them"?
When why are you punching down?
Why are you punching down? Right? And look at this. She's like, I worked 2 jobs. I went full time to school. I went here. Well, Jacqueline did the same thing. Jacqueline did the same thing, and so did Annette, and so did we, and
so did you, Ariel. So did you.
Yeah, and so did I. Everyone did, and it's ridiculous to just say that. Oh, it's all our fault. You see, I think she's been. It's kind of this brainwashing from the system that does it. That does this. Yeah, took no grants, and then we're But why the hell should you go through all of that shit? Why should we have to go through all of that shit when there are people at the top? They've never worked a day in their lives, and if they never want, like, if Jeff Bezos has like 10 generations down grandkids, they don't have to work a day in their lives, and you're here talking about like, oh, other people don't deserve this and don't deserve that. That's ridiculous.
Because she had it, nobody else. She doesn't care about it.
Okay, here's the thing. If I went through hell and if my life was miserable and I'm suffering, so does everybody else's. So let me ask you something. If you were trafficked like Jacqueline Sandra, and if you were raped as a young little girl, should everybody be raped as a young little girl? Should that happen just because you went through that kind of hell and that kind of thing? Should everyone else go through that too? Just because Jacqueline was trafficked, should every other 13-year-old girl be trafficked? Should we, is this the kind of
I don't recall consenting to being born into a poor family and then becoming orphaned and left homeless at age 12 and then trafficked into forced prostitution in that order, and then stigmatized and criminalized and excluded from almost 99% of the fucking jobs out there for the better part of my life.
Sandra, this is reality. Jacqueline was a trafficking survivor.
And my lack of privilege, I'm sorry, but you know what? My lack of privilege paid for your good luck. Fuck you and your selfishness.
Look, and then she's like, "You survived. Good on you." But that should have never happened to begin with. That's our point over here. It's not the point that she survived. Good for her. It's the point that should never happen. Back in the ancient days,
what shouldn't have happened is that I shouldn't have been deprived of the opportunities that she got because of what was done to me when I had no choice in the matter. I didn't consent to what happened to me.
Yeah.
And she's basically saying, that because she's got hers, hooray for her and fuck everybody else that's worse off, that hasn't been as lucky. You know,
Okay.
I have this habit. I don't do business with people who are selfish fuck sticks. I won't buy from them. I won't trade with them. I won't have anything to do with them, and I don't
Yeah.
have to.
Here's the part that
What
pisses
she
me off.
probably doesn't realize about you, Jacqueline, is that you put yourself through college. And what was your degree in again?
Oh, pure math, with a minor in physics.
Yeah.
I was 6 credits away from a double major when I graduated. Yeah.
And what is your best skill that you have right now? That I know nothing about, and you're always wanting to teach me, but my brain doesn't work that way.
Oh, fuck. Trading derivatives, trading options and futures.
Yeah.
You're freaking brilliant.
But this is the thing that always gets on my nerves.
I took my COVID check and I turned it, and because I had help and support, I had some help and support. Granted, it was it didn't come right away, but it was a couple, 3 good people, to be precise, stepped up and enabled me to be put on the ground where I now have a chance of being able to actually, get economically stabilized through trading and get out from underneath the pattern day trade rule, which is great, because that will open up 75% of the trading strategies that are not available to you if you're in a cash only trading account.
Yeah, this is,
it's like the degree I earned never opened any doors for jobs to me, and I couldn't even get minimum wage McDonald's jobs because I was stigmatized with a prostitution record as a result of being a child sex trafficking victim. Okay, I was actually stigmatized for that. That record was not expunged under vacature laws until I was 47 years old. 47. Try getting your first job when you're a 47-year-old woman, Sandra. Good fucking luck with that. So, I mean, I will never sit here on my high horse and say, I made it all on my own and I'm succeeding at trading because of all of me. No, it's because I got some help and support from some people who gave a fuck of enough about me and believed in me enough to want me to have a chance. Okay? Let's not get shit twisted, sister.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that this is the part. It's not just Sandra. It's like this American mentality that if I went through shit, if I have to eat shit, then everybody else should have to eat shit as well. This is why our country is so fucking stupid and backwards. It's like, no, if I was abused as a child, or if I was smacked, or if my parents didn't treat me well, I'm not going to have kids and do the same thing to them. You fucking stupid asses. It gets on my nerves.
I agree with you, Ariel. That is such a horrible argument for anyone to make. And it's downright sociopathic. It's cruel.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sadistic and, quite frankly, downright.
If you grew up in a war zone, would you say it's not fair that somebody else didn't grow up in that same war zone? It's not fair that at night they didn't have to hear gunshots and bombs and missiles flying over their heads? No, you fucking idiot. So then why would you say, oh, if I had to like live off 3 cents, then like why did this, then why shouldn't everybody else? It's called progress for a reason. It's called, we don't live in caves anymore, and we're past fire because we think that every generation that comes after us should do a little better. We should progress. We don't say, oh, look, like somebody chopped off my finger when I was 5 years old. Everybody should have their finger chopped off when they're 5 years old. It's being stupid. All right, it pissed me off, but that's it.
We should want our generations that come behind us to do much, much better than we are. We are failing miserably at life right now.
Mhm.
We want to make it easier for them to have a better life than we have and to create that progress. And so we don't lose our art and our creativity
And we should take
and
care
our
of the
love
people
and our like
Yeah, and it's not just kids.
community.
We should take care of the people who are now old and infirm, who suffered an entire lifetime of opportunity denied, because all
Oh,
opportunities
Jesus.
come with a shelf life, number
Right.
one. And number two, there never were
Okay.
enough opportunities available to all.
Right.
Okay. So we need to get honest with ourselves about that. So I think that we need to look at, let's not shit where we eat, man.
Yeah.
Let's make life suck a little bit
Okay,
less
so
for everybody.
she's
Okay.
saying let's talk about this not free everything. So
We're
how is
not.
like
Talking about
$1,000
free everything.
free everything? We're not
It's-
talking about free everything. We're talking about
We're not talking.
Not
Yeah,
funded-
we're not
okay.
talking about
Hey,
free
get this.
everything.
I think she means funding trade schools is classism. Well, Andrew Yang wanted to make trade schools and community
Yeah,
college
but-
free.
But
And
we're
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's a thing that, and I think what Sandra is confusing here is
she obviously doesn't know much about Yang or the Yang Gang. Okay, so first acknowledge that we've never floated an amount in this conversation, so there's no amount to talk about yet. So if you've never heard of Andrew Yang, that's who we are talking about. Andrew Yang
Yeah.
ran for president as a Democrat. Oh, you know, because you think he's a Nazi that wants to put us through the Holocaust for an app on our
Really?
phone. That's right. So you are aware of who he is. Okay. And so he ran his entire campaign on the idea that every American citizen, starting at the age of 18 until they die, should get $1,000 a month. And then that amount could fluctuate as our economy fluctuates. There might come a time where we actually did make progress and we were able to get out of the raging, gaping hole of poverty and debt that we are trapped in. Okay? And then maybe before I die, I might actually get to have like some sort of financial security. And then maybe my children and my grandchild might not have to suffer in poverty like I did. That'd be really fucking fantastic. Right?
Yeah.
So I don't want my kids to have to go through what I went through. I want it to be better for my kids and my granddaughter even more so, because my kids are resilient because they lived my life with me, you know? So they already know how to survive that kind of shit. And they're tough kids.
And $1,000 a month. We're not like.
Like no, that's what it was, $1,000 a month. That's
And
it.
the thing is,
COVID. That was pre-COVID, though.
that was pre-COVID, right? And $1,000 per month isn't enough for me to like buy a mansion. That's not free everything. It's 18 kids better. Okay, whatever. And 1,000, it's a floor. When we're talking about a floor, that doesn't include the walls, that doesn't include the roof, that doesn't include any of those things. That creates a floor. But what we have now isn't even zero. It's quicksand. Because when you need to pay bills and when you need to pay expenses and there's nothing coming in, that's quicksand. So we have to just stop the quicksand. You just put a floor in there. You know?
Yes.
Exactly. And like I said before, other people's lack of fortune and lack of privilege and lack of opportunity paid for the good fortune and the privileges of those who've been more fortunate. And the thing is what I'm seeing is from those who've been more fortunate is a whole hell of a lot of a lack of sense of noblesse oblige.
Yeah, but here's what pisses me off. We're not having a My Life sucks and I had it so bad when I was younger contest, okay?
Yeah.
I don't get it why like people in this country are
I've done. Look at all the things I've done. I've done this and I've done that.
Like this
Nobody
is the kind of thing that pisses me off. I like when people want to read out a laundry list of how much, you know, their youth or something to them sucked. How about if we think of like what would have made it better? What would have made it
what would have made it? Yeah, and what would have made it not be a nightmare?
Right.
What would have made a difference? What would have provided an actual level floor, a level playing field? You know, access to opportunity, an open door. What would have done that?
What would have done that? Exactly. It's like it's like, you know, people in this country like to provide like a laundry list of like, oh, and this sucked for me and that sucked for me, and then I had to make my way through this hardship and that hardship. Yeah, you know why that happened to you? Because this system is shit. You know? Because this system is shit. Because if this system wasn't shit, people in this country wouldn't be dumb enough to have like a contest of like, this sucked when I was younger and that sucked when I was younger and this sucked, and like stop complaining. They would say, wait, hang on. Why the hell are we attacking each other and like getting on each other's back and saying we don't deserve this and we don't deserve that? And then and actually go and say like, hey, who's making our policies? Who's making this? Who's making that? Yeah, I mean, you see, like, okay, she says her parents are shit, Sandra, but you know what gets you away from shit parents? Financial stability. So if you had that $1,000 a month at age 18,
that's a basic level of economic empowerment that actually gives you
16.
freedom, because it gives you the freedom to say no to abusive relationships. It gives you the freedom to say no to an abusive employer or an exploitative working conditions. It gives you the freedom to say, you know what, I don't like this movie. I'm leaving the fucking theater. And everybody deserves to have that as a basic floor, so that, you know, people can solve their own problems.
Yeah.
You know, the problems that aren't able to be solved individually. Not all problems are able to be solved individually. And that's where we draw our line and say, this is personal responsibility. This is societal or collective responsibility. When it comes to institutionalized problems that are, you know, kicking the can down the line and making things manifestly worse for millions of people, those are things that can only be addressed systemically. But for UBI takes care of a hell of a lot of things on the individual side, so that individuals can actually have the basic freedom to, you know, economically empower themselves and to survive, right?
Right.
And with that, you can actually change the trajectory of the macro.
Right.
So that, you know, you don't have a mess that's an institutionalized clusterfuck that some other poor saps 10 generations down the line are going to have dumped in their laps to fix.
Yeah.
What a concept, huh?
Yeah, and then she says I had like 3 jobs in school, and spelled school wrong, ironically. But the thing is that like that's not normal to have like 3 jobs or 4 jobs and just marginally be surviving. That's not personal responsibility anymore. That's like, hey, hang on a second. Like something in this system smells kind of fishy. And that's where like the US doesn't have any brain cells yet left. Or at least like the people, like they've been so good at this us versus them mentality that we've had in our rotten, corrupt media, that you get people turning on each other than trying to help each other and actually looking at the main cause of problems. It's just worked so well that people are so like, it's like ignorance, it's jealousy, and it's like this thing. It's like if I had it bad, you should have it bad too. That's like, you know, that's no better than a caveman. it's like you might as well be living as a caveman if that's that's the thing, because it's like if we have the ability to like generate abundance and stuff like that, then why still pretend that we're living like cavemen and we've there are hardly any resources? It's, I don't know, it's absolutely ridiculous.
Okay, so her parents are not poor. They're fine. Not a low-income family. They have 3 degrees. It doesn't matter how many degrees they have. That's classist right there. You accused us of being classist earlier. That's pretty fucking classist right there, because Jacqueline is poor and fucking dirt, and she's highly educated and super intelligent. Okay? So I didn't like that. I just wanted to let you know.
Yeah, so she inherited a whole lot of privilege, and that privilege came at the price because of a limited number of good spots in society. Those privileges and opportunities and comforts came at the expense of a whole hell of a lot of other people's lack of privilege and opportunity. And I refuse to apologize for saying so.
Yeah,
I really get fucks.
You must have had some amount of privilege, Sandra, to be able to adopt 3 teenagers plus raise 3 of your own. Okay,
she adopted 15.
Yeah, that's what I meant. 15 teenagers plus 3 of her own. So
that's a significant amount of privilege right there.
Right.
Yeah. Damn. Sometimes for me, adopting a cat makes me broke.
I know people who can't have kids and who can't even qualify financially to adopt 1 kid.
Yes.
Right.
I couldn't qualify financially to adopt or to become a foster parent. And I grew up in foster care when I was young because I didn't have that privilege of having my parents with me at all times. So
yeah,
I forgot where I was going with it. I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry.
But even if you left the house at like 16, like who cares? It's like you still had enough money to adopt all those kids.
Born into a middle class or better off family is a significant amount of privilege. And for every person who at least got to start out there, what they don't realize is that their privileges came at the expense and price of a whole lot of suffering and disprivilege of others who weren't as fortunate. And nobody chooses what family they're born into or what economic status they're born into or what have you. Nobody chooses their genetics either. Nobody chooses to be born with a disability. Nobody chooses any of that shit. And it's a real, it's not just privilege. It's like a real sense of sociopathic level of entitlement to say, well, I deserve everything, while people that are less fortunate don't deserve jack or shit when Jack left town a long time ago. You feel me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You feel me?
Right.
So she says that it cost her anything except a $500. No big deal, just a $500 lawyer fee at the time. So what's 500 times 15?
That's almost our whole stimulus check. It's like $100 less than like a stimulus check that we were getting. It's like, I just can't stand the stupidity of like if it, like no but that's funny, like it's like the same story, like, oh yeah, and this sucked for me and that sucked for me and this sucked for me, I'm pocketing all my money and we should have no UBI, when like, first of all, it's not your money to be like pocketed or not pocketed. Like it can just even be printed out and just yeah. Wow. Yeah.
Okay, look. So she stopped helping in 2010 when her husband became terminal. That is so very unfortunate that your husband became terminal. And I'm very sincere when I'm saying that, okay? But
Yeah.
what I'm saying is that you wouldn't have had to stop helping when your husband became terminal, because you would have had a UBI to hold you up. So you wouldn't have had to give up whatever it is that you stopped doing, you know?
Right.
Like that UBI would have been, and your husband would have had the UBI until he died. So you would have had double UBI. What do you think? How many positive things can you think of that you could have done during that time if you had just like that extra little floor?
Yeah.
Okay.
God.
There's other
Okay.
people who suffered the same thing, except they weren't economically comfortable, and medical debt is one of the number one causes for bankruptcy and homelessness. And when you have a bankruptcy in your record, that's another thing that goes against people for getting jobs. I'd like to point that out.
I
So-
think like American people are like a deeply traumatized
I think they're deeply
lot.
selfish and narcissistic.
Yeah, they're selfish and yeah, that's for sure.
And it's like only some of this can be blamed on trauma, because you don't get much poorer than born into generational poverty and then orphaned and trafficked in that order at age 12. You don't get much poorer and more disprivileged than that. And I would never for a fucking New Jack minute wish that shit on anyone else, just because I went through that and suffered it.
Right.
You know,
Exactly.
I mean, there is something to be said for the character of people who thinks that is perfectly okay. That people without privilege and people who've been less fortunate should just suffer and die to pay for them to have their dreams.
I think this one's directed at you, Jacqueline.
This is for you, Jacqueline.
No, I'm just calling it like it is, and I give zero fucks if you agree with it or not. I'm not here to. I didn't join this movement to make friends or to win a popularity contest.
Right.
I joined to tell the truth and fight for some real fucking justice and human rights, which is something that obviously you have no concept of. Since you think people that haven't been as fortunate as you should suffer and die just so you can have your fucking dreams, go fuck yourself. And that's not a problem.
I obviously don't. I don't think that you are interested in coming over to our side anyway. I think that you've already got your mind made up, and you are not interested in coming over to any side. Not at all.
She thinks that anybody who hasn't been as fortunate should suffer and die. And I'm going to give you some statistics.
Yeah, we are angry.
I want to give you guys
you're dismissing.
I want to give you guys some statistics, and I want you to bear in mind that behind these numbers were real people's lives, real people who had names, who had hopes, who had dreams and aspirations, and who were no less deserving of a chance than Sandra, okay? Let's talk about prior to COVID. The statistics in the United States were 700 people died every day from unrelieved abject poverty in this country.
She's
country.
Laughing at our anger.
Damn right I'm angry.
Nice?
Righteous anger. And if you're not angry, then there's something wrong with you. If you're not angry about people suffering, then there's something
you're
wrong.
Not paying attention.
We'll go through the numbers.
I'm sorry, I just had to throw it out
700 people.
I love that she's
700 Americans
anguish
died every day from poverty in this country prior to COVID. Prior to COVID. Those numbers have increased exponentially since COVID. Okay? Since COVID. I want you to think about 700 people who've been a hell of a lot less fortunate than you, whose lack of privilege and opportunity paid for yours, who died just so you can have your dream, and you feel entitled to that. Yeah. That was prior to COVID. 700 lives, 700 people per day who had hopes and dreams and aspirations and who worked hard and who didn't deserve the shit sandwich that life in this selfish, shitty society handed them. 500,000 underage kids are trafficked every year into forced prostitution because of poverty. The number one condition of vulnerability to being trafficked is poverty and homelessness. It's not rich kids from Beverly Hills or San Francisco or the Hamptons that are being trafficked to the streets of Philadelphia or Houston or Atlanta for adults to have otherwise unwanted sex with them. Do you feel me?
Yeah, that's that thing. That's 21,700 people a month.
Yeah,
that die. Yeah,
okay.
And then if we make that to a year, that's 260,400 people a year.
Yep.
If you multiply that 700, so
yep, and that's prior to COVID. That is prior to COVID.
It's probably exponential when COVID.
That is prior to COVID. Okay. Right. So, I really give zero fucks about somebody trying to shame me for being angry. You're not going to shame me for being angry. I wear my fucking anger like a badge of honor. Because if you're not angry about that level of suffering and that level of injustice,
you're not a human.
To fellow Americans, to fellow human beings, to fellow citizens, then you are the one with the problem, not me.
With the mental illness.
You are the one that really has an issue. Because if that doesn't make you angry, then you're part of the problem. And you aren't interested in coming over to the side of people who at least give enough of a fuck about basic human rights and have a concept of basic human rights to at least want to fix this that suffering on that level is not accepted as a cultural value. There's nothing ennobling about suffering or about stripping entire groups of people of their basic human rights. Nothing virtuous about that at all.
Exactly.
Not a goddamn thing.
And I'm pretty sure if 10 or 15 of these people survive, it's only going to be the sociopaths who want to see what they went through happen to other people. It's only going to be the probably the worst among them. So some of them may have survived because they sold out their fellow brothers or sisters, or they didn't care. I mean, in Nazi Germany, you had the Jews ratting on other Jews. They called them capos or something.
Yeah, the leaders of the Judenrat, the
Judenrats,
the ghetto, the sealed ghettos, in
right, exactly. So it's like the people who are saying I was treated like shit and I survived and now I'm rich and fuck you. They're like the Judenrats, they're
like the capos. In fact,
they're the capos, exactly.
They're the capos. They actually did Adolf Eichmann's bidding, and they did it gladly.
Right? Yeah. Exactly.
Ariel, and I'm glad you brought that up because a lot of people they haven't learned from history too well. I don't think they haven't learned much of anything.
Right, exactly. I would be disgusted with myself if somebody told me to sell any of you two out. They said the thing is that both of you may be imprisoned or I don't know, something bad would happen to you, but we're gonna give you just $1 million just to shut you up and to make sure that these two don't talk either.
Yeah, and it's for lobbing insult bombs at me by saying I'm a sociopath because I want to see, you know, everybody have a basic floor. Let me tell
Right.
you something. I'm not the one advocating for others to suffer and die just so I can have mine and have my dreams. That's you,
Right.
Sandra, and others like you.
Yeah.
And I'm not afraid to use my voice and call you out for that and tell you exactly to your face exactly who and what you are.
Right.
And I give zero fucks if anybody approves of that or not. Because
Right.
at the end of the day, sometimes the truth is all you've got. But no matter what happens, the truth is still the truth. And there is no amount of whitewashing, no amount of sugarcoating, no amount of fairy dust thinking that can change that. There's immutable facts like the axioms of mathematics, like the fifth piano, that if n is an element of the set of all natural numbers, then all elements of the set of natural numbers of the form n plus 1
Right.
are also a part of that
I've
set.
actually, it's funny you say it. Like I've watched this documentary on like the power of positive thinking and all of that stuff, and they say that like that stuff like turned out to be a racket. You know, like the people who just say like, oh, you know, everything is fine, just close your eyes and wish it all away. The problem is you, the problem is your attitude. That is a multi-million-dollar industry chock full of like snake oil salesmen.
Oh yeah,
Chock full of like multi-level marketing, chock full of all of that stuff.
Profiting off of other people's desperation by peddling dog shit to the public while calling it chocolate candy.
Right, exactly. It's like the Tony Robbins stuff and like the you know, like at the turn of the century or whatever, when all the factories started closing and all of these people started losing like, you know, their livelihoods.
That started happening in the 1980s.
Right. All the like these MLM companies had some of these politicians in their pocket, and even like Ronald Reagan went to speak for like Amway or something like that. It's all a scam. It's all bullshit. It never, the endless chain like business model always screws, you know, the people at the bottom. But then you have Reagan like calling it the new American dream and like, you know, thing, and a whole bunch of like FTC regulators like looking the other way on this. And the MLM is kind of like it's a financial cult. If you're not winning, it's like, you know, like your way of thinking and like your attitude that has you like not making money at this MLM, when it's just a fact that 99% you're more likely to make more money at McDonald's than you are in an MLM.
That's true, and the reason is because MLMs are pyramids, and
right,
you know, pyramids start out with a wide base and they go up. You know, as you go up, they get narrower at the top. The spaces inside the pyramids, if you were to carve them up into levels or spaces, get smaller and smaller. That means there's less and less room as you get up the top. And you know, there is no way that you can defy the laws of mathematics and say, well, you know, you can positively think your way
out of this.
It's
like somebody pushes you off a cliff and says like, think of flying and you'll fly. It's like,
yeah, just imagine sprout wings.
Just yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what it turns into. And it turns out that like, just like an MLM, then it transfers into like the job market also has like a limited amount that you know in the system. It's
and even with the gig economy, I mean, you have to be damn near perfect to even land paid gigs. You have to have a slew of 5-star references or reviews. You have to, you know, basically be young and physically attractive looking because you're required to post your picture in a video. Okay, so because of ageism and our culture of celebrity and all that shit, who does that leave out? You know, people who don't have platforms, people who, were shut out, earlier in life and who are now in their older years, and no one's going to sign up for their stuff because no one wants to look at a physically unattractive looking older person or a fat person or a pimply person or whatever the fuck. I mean, it's ridiculous. Nobody should have to be perfect just to be deserving of the chance to earn enough money to be able to eat today. And anybody that's okay with that, they're the fucking sociopath that's part of the problem. Not someone like me who's angry at the injustice and angry at the suffering, who wants to see things change so that nobody has to suffer like that. Nobody has to be trafficked. Nobody has to die because, they fell through the cracks of a broken system. I'm saying that even people that I despise and don't like, I wouldn't want to see them suffer. Even if I wouldn't piss on them if they were on fire, I still wouldn't want to see them die from poverty and homelessness. I'd still want to see them have a social floor.
Right.
Take my anger for what it's worth.
Oh, look at this. Lindsey Graham just said that $2,000 direct payments are not socialism. He's actually breaking away with McConnell on this. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Where's that on Twitter?
Yeah. So there just might be hope yet. I don't know. It's probably just because Trump said it, but still, I take it. That's fine.
I think when Trump made that proposition, here's what my take on it was. Because looking back over 2020, ever since this pandemic started, okay? The government, and I'm saying Republicans, Democrats in Congress, I'm saying House and Senate, I'm saying the executive office, which is president, okay? They had the better part of a year to implement a floor to prevent, a more costly and deeper economic devastation. Okay.
Right.
And for months that we were calling for, and that Andrew Yang specifically was calling for, an emergency UBI of $2,000 a month for everybody. Okay. All right. It fell on deaf ears. I saw our politicians use the poorest and most vulnerable people in this society as human shields to play a game of what amounts to political chicken, just to gain one-upmanship. Now think about what the concept of using someone as a human shield really means, okay? I'll leave you guys to Google that. I don't look kindly on people who do that, right?
Right.
Now Trump comes along and says, I want $2,000 a month for the, long-suffering American people. Why didn't he open up his mouth back in July? Why didn't he open up his mouth back in March and say the same thing? Why didn't he insist on an unconditional emergency UBI back then? What he did was, if you're familiar with ancient Greek mythology and you're familiar with the Iliad by Homer, what really started the Trojan War goes back before Helen of Sparta hooked up with Paris, the Prince of Troy. It started when there was a feast on Mount Olympus, and the goddess of discord, who was not invited to the feast, crashed the party and tossed a golden apple onto the table in front of Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite. And on this golden apple was the inscription to the fairest. And she was throwing down a gauntlet of challenge there when she tossed that apple down, that those three goddesses would have to vie for the exclusive devotion from Paris, he didn't know he was a Prince of Troy at the time. He was being raised as a shepherd's son and, in the countryside, that he would find, that favor enough to, worship that particular goddess. So Hera tried to entice him by promising him, immense wealth. Athena tried to entice him by promising him, hero warrior status. Because Athena, who was not only the goddess of wisdom, she was also the goddess of war. Then you had Aphrodite, who was the goddess of love and great sex and all that shit. She promised Paris the love of the most beautiful woman in the world. And you know the old saying, a stiff dick has no conscience and no brains. Well, you know what happened from there, right? The most beautiful woman in the world at that time was Helen. Except one problem. Helen was already married. She was the wife of Menelaus, one of the kings of Sparta. Okay, so you know what happened from there. The Trojan War happened from there. And even though there was a victory on the part of the Mycenaeans, it was a Pyrrhic victory. Now, Troy was laid to waste, but it was really a Pyrrhic victory for the Mycenaeans. Okay, I mean, Achilles died in that epic battle. There was a Odysseus. He never made it home. He made it home late, way late, many years late. And Helen and Menelaus's relationship had never really mended. So this is what happened, was just to stir up shit. The goddess of discord tossed this golden apple on the table. That launched the whole Trojan War. That right there. Well, what do you think Trump did when he promised the $2,000 COVID check? He was throwing the metaphorical golden apple of discord on the table before Nancy Pelosi and Moscow Mitch McConnell. Hello.
But the funny thing is that Schumer and Pelosi just said okay, and then it was just the asshats like McConnell and his gang that are just like it's funny. It's funny. There's you guys know that Mandalorian thing from Star Wars? So Trump said, I'm asking for $2,000 payments, and then the Democrats were like, okay. And then the Republicans, there was a picture of a robot, and it said, I will activate self-destruct. Basically. But that's great. I hope they self-destruct. I hope this is like the self-destruction of these scumbags. And I'm glad that Trump did what he did.
I feel kind of like Cassandra, who was the sister of Prince Hector and Prince Paris of Troy. Cassandra, because she spurned the advances of Apollo, she was cursed with, even though she had the gift of prophecy, she would never be believed. And a lot of times I feel like Cassandra, because I've often said that this country is not going to decide to do the right thing until, those who are in the top 10% end up having poverty nip at their heels and take them down a couple pegs. And then they're going to realize, albeit at a time when it'll probably be too late and cost way too much more to fix than if this would have been fixed, properly, instead of the past 40 years of the media and think tanks putting out false information about, the real situation with the lack of jobs, and that there would be a lot of people that would do all these right things, like getting these degrees, and only to not find a space in society because there'd be too many people competing for too few opportunities and too few slots. Right. And this is something that I talked about in my book, Classism for Dimwits, and this was back during the days when I was an unapologetic Trotskyist, very hardcore left, very hardcore commie. Mm-hmm. But every one of my complaints that I laid out in that book with the treatment of the poor is no less valid, just because I was, very much an unapologetic commie back then. I mean, granted, I'm not now, but those points are even more valid today than those complaints against the poor are even more valid.
Winston Churchill said that Americans will do the right thing until they've exhausted every other option.
Yeah. And every other option will be, it's like, well, we'll be this country will burn to the ground first, and then you might have a handful of survivors that will go.
You know where you deserve. Ojeda, who is a good friend of ours. I don't know.
Yes, I like him. He's cool as shit. I like him.
Yeah, he had Yang on,
Yes,
and he has a podcast now, Airborne. It's live on a YouTube. So he's like he said he's going to also like invite random people in the chat. So like if you're lucky, like because he's just as unapologetic as you are, and he like cusses and at these assholes and stuff like that. And yeah, I saw stuff.
Well, it's like being a truth teller often doesn't win you a popularity contest. It often doesn't put you in the cute puppy contest as a runner-up, even. But
the popularity contest.
You know what? The truth is still the truth, and if you want to solve problems, want to fix things, you want to solve problems, you have to be honest with yourself and with others on what the problem actually is. And if we're not honest about these things, we're not going to have a solution that's going to work. In order to have a solution to a problem, you've got to be honest about the problem. You've got to understand what the problem is and all the aspects of it. You don't just try to solve a multivariate calculus problem while not knowing half of the damn instructions or information.
Blindfolds on. You know, it's funny about what you said. Some comedian said something hilarious about like all of Trump's lawsuits and stuff. It was like a man falling off the 100-story building and trying to sue the sidewalk out of existence.
Oh, I think I saw that.
Doesn't work.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Because he doesn't understand. Like, hey, sometimes you don't get your way and money doesn't mean anything anymore. And he's still there because he's so used to like the money just performing magic for him that it's like not this time. Yeah, and they're still talking about like all that lawsuit stuff that like New York is going to like do. Like the state of New York has like, I don't know, like all of this stuff that they,
He's got criminal charges waiting for him.
Yeah.
I mean, he's looking at having a roommate named Bubba by the time this is
but it'll just be nice, but it'll help you out a lot, Jacqueline, because there's not going to be as much volatility in these markets without his like
volatility is good. It's
right.
Chop. It's when you have a lot of chop,
right?
Which is not to be confused with volatility. I mean, volatility. Right. I've actually benefited somewhat from the volatility without the chop. It's when you have the chop, the market is seeking direction. Volatility, when the direction is established, is a good thing to a point. But volatility, when the markets are seeking direction and everything has gone schizophrenic cattywampus, that's a bad thing. That's when you really want to be sharp on. But this is where it's hard for small account holders, because if you have less than 25K, you're subject to something called the pattern day trade rule. And one multi-leg trade, like a long straddle or an iron butterfly, where you're involving, some shorts and some long positions, okay? Or a diagonal spread, which is another good tactic to use. You're talking about multi-leg trades where one trade actually involves, more than one option. And each one of those options that once you, one by one, close those trades, they count as a day trade flag if it's closed within the same day that you opened the position, which is why, it's very, very difficult for small account holders to really gain headway in choppy markets. Now, a little bit of volatility where you have some nice swing, but the market has a long-term trend sense of direction. It's not going, which way am I going, man? Which way do I go? Which way do I go? You know, that's the shit you don't want. You want to look for, you know, at least a trend that it has definitive direction. You know, some volatility on that where direction is established is not a bad thing. You know, I benefited from that, especially with calls on and stuff on the Russell. The SPY has become a lot more tricky to work with, though, because with the inclusion of Tesla, which swings big. I mean, Tesla swings big. And as much space as it takes up on the SPY, on the S&P 500 index, okay, in the on the SPY, when that moves and when Apple or one of the FANG stocks move, you know, unexpectedly because of some kind of condition that, you know, nobody could foresee, and then you see the SPY abruptly change direction, it's like, well, it might be smarter to just play SPY futures and day trade those futures. And futures, although now options are leveraged, but futures have a lot more leverage, which is why there's a high degree of required initial margin, money that you have to cover your initial margin to get into a futures trade. But when you day trade a future, it does not count against your pattern day trade flags, but you got to be careful as fuck, because a futures contract does not have to move much. We're talking a little itty bitty candle. That's $100 move on a future. On a future. Okay. Compared to, let's say, a much bigger candle on, you know, on the price action chart of the underlying asset. And you look at what the ETF or the options on the ETF, on the index ETFs would be. To give you an example, the delta on options on underlying assets such as stocks, and I'm talking stocks and the equity indexes like the SPY, the Russell, what have you. Okay. The delta, which is the price, has to do with the price action movement of an at the money put or call, is typically between 0.5 and 1. And that means that translates to, for every 2% move in the underlying stock, that option moves 50% or more. Now, the delta of a futures contract is 500 to 1. 500 to 1 of the options. So it takes a lot more money to get into futures trading because of something known as initial margin and maintenance margin requirements that you have to have. So that means you have to have a certain amount of money that gets dedicated and put aside by the broker.
All I remember in that movie, Trading Spaces, when they did a margin call on those two old men, and they came and said margin call, gentlemen, and he screwed the tape. So a margin call is when you don't have enough in your account and they need to like call it and stuff.
Yeah, except they don't. In the old days, you actually used to get a phone call, you know.
Right, yeah.
Nowadays, the way it happens is, for example, with a futures contract, if you open a position, either long or short, it doesn't matter. If the value of your account falls below the initial margin amount that's required for you to open a trade on a futures contract, if the amount of the value of that drops such that the value of your overall account falls below that initial margin, the broker will require you to make an immediate additional deposit, which is known as your maintenance margin, to bring up the value to the initial margin. And you don't get any time to do this. It's like you got to do this right away.
Oh, yeah.
That's why you got to have a minimum amount. You know, there's a minimum amount you got to work. You really have to have to work with. And I wouldn't really suggest futures trading to anybody who had, you know, less than 12 grand minimum. And even with that, it's tricky. I mean, the silver minis you can get away with to a point because that initial margin is only about 3 grand. and the Russell 2000, the mini Russell 2000 futures they have initial margin of about $6,000 right about now, 6,600, I believe it is. Last time I looked, but the SPY, you're looking at 12,000. And you don't want to you need to have enough of a cash cushion in your account so that when the value of that futures contract fluctuates, and it can fluctuate within a matter of minutes or seconds even,
Wow.
you don't want to get caught with your pants down and be in a margin call.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you have 12 grand, you can play futures on the Russell and on the Silver Mini, but not the SPY minis, not the S&P 500 minis. Although they now came up with a micro, which is an even smaller slice of a futures contract, but that's not really quite worth the trouble.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, to really become proficient at trading, when you are starting out and you don't have a stable income, you have a little bit of help and support, you have some seed money, and you're dealing with this pattern day trade rule kneecapping you, okay, you have two choices. You can stick with a cash only account, but that means you can't short sell anything. It means you can't do spreads. It means you certainly can't do futures because you need to have margin approval to do futures. The pattern day trade rule applies only to margin accounts, by the way, not cash accounts. So that leaves you being able to only buy. You can't short sell anything, right? That cuts out about 75 to 80% of the trading strategies and opportunities to you.
Whoa.
But with margin, if you have less than 25K, one multi-leg trade can sink your battleship with that pattern day trade rule.
Wow.
Now I just recently made a little bit of a tidy profit off of and I had some friends I explained this to. This is how a trader conversation goes.
Oh.
The markets were acting a little iffy, and we didn't know what was going to go on with the COVID relief shit. This was all right before Christmas, and we were expecting a Santa Claus rally, but I was having some reservation because of the fuck sticks in Congress that, wouldn't bat an eye about giving billions to, the wealthiest, but we're, squabbling over whether or not to give every one of us a COVID check, right? So I'm thinking, well, the market's going to react badly if this stimulus thing is not resolved. On the other hand, this is about the time that we are really, we can expect to see a Santa Claus rally. That's, like from the last week of December and through the first couple of days of January, you see, a lot of things swing up. So I bought a call on the SPY and it started to go down. So I grabbed a put and turned that into a long straddle, which is a put and a call with the same expiration date, same strike price. Because I wanted to make sure, since we were heading into a holiday weekend, I wanted to make sure that either way the market moved that following Monday, that I'd be covered. Now, obviously, only one of those legs would work out. Either the put, which would have made out if the market would have dropped, or the call, which did make out when the market went up. However, at the very end of the day, like 2 minutes before the bell rang and trading was about to cease for the holiday weekend, I noticed an uptick in the volume, and I looked at the footprint of the money by looking at the options statistics, because their options trading is very transparent. There's no dark pool or DIX index, okay, for trading options. Those options activities are reported for all to see. And I looked and I saw there was sounded like there was going to be buying. So it's like, oh shit, I want to cover what I'm going to lose on that put and the price that I had to pay for the put. So I'm going to go naked on a couple of puts, and that means short selling 2 puts. Going naked, that's actually this is part of the jargon. So I did that, And I wanted to do one more thing. I wanted to be able to have enough to tie on a silver futures contract, but I didn't have enough cash left. So I'm going, wait a minute. So I get on the phone and I have TD Ameritrade on fucking speed dial. Okay. And I get Frank at the trading desk and I'm like, what's going on? You know, I should be able to, you know, I should have more than 1900, you know, available to me when I have, you know, much more than that in my account. And he says, really exasperated, as if I should know this. He says, well, Jacqueline, it's because you're naked. And I said, well, I know I'm naked, but I'm only naked on 2 small puts, and they're so far out of the money that there was like virtually no chance that I'm going to get an early assignment risk. Now, when you're trading and you're talking to other traders, you don't really think about the jargon you're using, because this is actually jargon that we use. You know, we say like straddles and going naked. This actually has to do with trading strategies and shit. Well, I'm explaining this to somebody that is actually learning how to trade for me in Yang Gang. I basically had him almost, you know, dying, rolling on the floor laughing, you know. Another friend just about Peter Pants, you know, they just weren't used to hearing terms like, yeah, I know I'm naked, but I'm only naked on these 2 things. And it's like, it's not,
It's funny.
yeah,
Hey,
but it's like, this is what it meant. It meant, you know, going naked. So what ended up happening is I made a profit from the 2 short puts. And the only reason I would even ride a short over the weekend is because of my experience and knowledge as a trader has taught me that there's a high likelihood that it'll be the put leg on that long straddle that's going to shit the bed. But the 2 short puts will recover will recover.
So it's like an insurance on your trades. Yeah.
Insurance on the trade.
Nice.
You need margin to do that.
Yeah.
You really need to know your shit about shorting before you attempt this. And for God's sake, if this would not have been over the Christmas weekend where we were getting into expecting the Santa Claus rally and the upcoming January effect, I would have never done this over a weekend. As a rule, hold shorts over a weekend, but it was knowing the personality of the SPY and having had enough knowledge about that market and about the time of the year that I'm trading in. The entire situational awareness aspect of it, to know that I can probably get away with going naked over the weekend.
Yeah.
And when you use terms like that, it just cracks people up. These are actual legit technical, this is technical financial engineering terms.
So let's see. We have a comment that says Dave Morrison. Are you still here? Annette, do you know if he's from the UK? He's saying that he's in the Brexit. It's funny, they kept talking about Brexit, but
I'm guessing because he says I'm in Brexit now, though.
Yeah, I always thought that Brexit happened years ago because they kept talking about it and talking about it, but it didn't happen, and it just happened. It's just happening now.
Are you in England, Dave? Because if you're in another country, you're not subject to the pattern day trade rule. Only traders that are domiciled here in the United States are subject to that. Like if I was living in Canada or Mexico or Latin America or Britain or Europe, I wouldn't be handcuffed that way. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. It's only in the United States because of our SEC trading rules that were established at the SEC.
Hell, that's so unfair. I guess
what's even more unfair is that when you do have a margin account that's lower than 25,000, you only get 2-to-1 leverage, whereas people with a lot more bigger accounts, they get 4-to-1 leverage. But as flawed and as unfair as that system is, that is actually a much more level playing field than the damn job market has been in the past 40 years.
Dang.
Because at least if you know how to read candlesticks, at least if you know how to read price action charts, at least if you know how to do fucking technical analysis, and you don't have to be a math whiz bang to get the basics on that. You can just know how to look at some very basic patterns that, and you can, if you just start getting a rudimentary grasp on that. But, it's really sad to say.
But here we are calling ourselves like, oh, land of free, and we have this like dumb law that like handcuffs, up and coming traders, and the other countries don't have it.
Other countries also allow something known as contracts for difference, which is kind of like a hybrid. The best way I can think of to describe it is a hybrid between an option and a futures. That's not legal here either. But it's legal over in Britain. It's legal over in a lot of European countries. Now, the difference between an option and a future, of course, is an option has time decay, or what we call theta decay. That as you get closer to the date of expiration, time decay eats into the value of that options contract, like eats away at it. Okay. Mm-hmm. Whereas futures don't have that. But futures, on the other hand, if you don't get out of those futures contract in time, you'll find yourself in a hurt locker, because you are obligated as the holder of a futures contract to buy the amount of units that contract is good for. In the case of commodities like, lean hogs or cattle, you better have a hell of a big backyard, because you're getting a fuck ton of cattle or lean hogs delivered to your house, and you better have the money to fulfill the contract. Same deal with the silver. You better have a place the size of Fort Knox. But you can trade futures on the indexes like the Russell 2000 and the S&P 500. And that would just obligate you to buying enough shares of the underlying, asset, if you're still holding that futures contract near expiration. But with options, you're not obligated to do that. However, you are faced with something called theta decay. That's why options are known as a wasting asset. Because that time decay each day that goes past. So I kind of have this rule that when I go long on an option, I typically go 3 to 4 weeks out in expiration date, and I try to see, I try to for a swing trade, I like to see that trade turn around within 7 days or less. Any longer than that, and it's like I'm getting ants in the pants, because after the 14th day, when you're about 14 days away from expiration, that theta decay kicks in exponentially and really eats into that, and you can't turn your trade around at that point, because it'll just, you'll never make the profit that you were hoping for, make the target you were hoping for. And if your trade went against you, it's not going to make up for the loss. And that's why learning how to do these different strategies with shorts, with going naked on puts and calls, is kind of important. Because you will not get a whole lot of time to turn things around. With futures, you have time to turn things around. You have 90 days. However, with the amount of leverage, due to that delta factor that a futures contract has with it, okay, you don't really, unless you have like $100,000 in your account, you only have one future contract open at a time, you're taking a hell of a risk sitting on that for any length of time too, because a big price action movement in either direction, depending on what side of the market you're on, you can really fuck yourself with your pants up without any foreplay and without any kissing. And I don't think you'd want that. You know what I'm saying?
Funny.
Oh, yeah. And you know how I learned how to trade? It was when I was being trafficked, by the way. These old Sicilian guys who were bookies, they were trying to launder some of their money from being bookies by playing the commodities. This is how I learned. And this is back in the day before there was online trading. This is back in the 1980s, when you actually had to look for the prices, of stocks and commodities in the newspaper. It was represented in fractional dollar. The dollar amounts were represented as fractions. And you actually had to place a call to a floor trader at the CBOE. And that's when they figured out that I was too smart to be, for my traffickers to be using me in the way they were using me. And I got a promotion. I got a promotion out of forced prostitution and drug mule, because they figured if I was smart enough to chart a price action chart and pick a winning trade for them based on that, then I was smart enough to run their fucking drugs from Philadelphia up to the Bronx and not get caught. I wasn't taught this shit from privileged, middle class, college educated parents. I got exposed to this on the streets of Philadelphia. But when I did get a degree and I earned a degree in math that I got, that math really propelled my understanding of these markets to a degree that I never before had. I mean, I was able to, understand the pricing and how the valuation of options work using something known as the Black-Scholes formula, which, of course, you would need to have a background in differential equations to do. Now, not everybody has to do that in order to understand how to trade. But you know what? It certainly gave me a much easier time at really understanding the world of high finance, the world of financial engineering. Now, I never thought about this. I thought everybody knew how to trade when I first became part of Yang Gang. I thought, well, people like Sandra and all these other people who came from privilege and who had, nice, privileged lives, that, well, shit, these were the better classes of people. These were the people who were more educated and blah, 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 blah. Sure as hell they knew all this stuff.
No, like our schooling system, basically, if you come from a privileged background, they want to keep you as insulated from having your own power as possible, because sometimes a lot of people who like come from privilege, it's more about like being within the family orbit. So
Yeah.
if you give like your younger generations like too much know-how on how to be like financially independent, then it's like they might leave the family system. So keep them just happy enough to be around you and just ignorant enough so they don't have enough to like go do their own thing. You know what I mean? So that's another reason. That's actually another reason why a lot of privileged people don't want their kids getting $1,000 a month, is because if they're within a toxic family system, the UBI, even no matter how privileged you are, you can still be in a toxic family system.
I mean, I've talked with people in this movement who come from privilege. Economically, at least on the surface, it looks privileged, but the amount of abuse and toxicity in the household is just through the fucking roof off.
Right, exactly.
And a UBI would be their fuck you money. It would be
right, exactly. So that's why the parents of like privileged young people don't want
even
something
Sandra
like a
said
UBI.
that. She talked about how well off her parents were, and they've got their 3 degrees. She said they were shit.
Right.
Yeah, and it's like, UBI would have given her the freedom to not have to put up with being treated like shit, because nobody exists to be somebody. Nobody exists to be somebody else's doormat or public turlet for somebody else to shit on or wipe.
Right, not even if they're their son or daughter. And that's what we don't honor here in this country, because I like since I'm a child of divorce, I was always looking forward to the day of like making my own money, working my way up in a company, starting kind of like a business for myself, but then graduating into the stupid recession. And then if like you don't like your family system and you want to get away and you want to start your own thing, they're like, oh, you don't even have a job, you don't even have any money, what are you gonna do? And it's like, it's so fucking offensive, but it's like, And
I know a fellow Yang Gang, and I'm not going to out her because that would be cool, but her family basically disowned her because she, quote, married down. In other words, she didn't marry a dude from the 1%, and she's from the 1%. She married a dude who was from the upper middle class, the top 20 or top 10%.
Right.
And that wasn't good enough. Now she married for love. Okay. And now they're struggling. They're not as bad off as many people in Yang Gang, but they're definitely struggling. And she was not taught anything about trading. She was the friend who just about fell on the floor peeing her pants. Well, she didn't actually pee her pants, but she was that close to peeing her pants. When I told her about this is how a conversation between two traders goes, and I told her about me and Frank, the floor trader at TD, when I was questioning the margin amount and the amount of disposable cash left after going naked on 2 puts, and she just at replaying that conversation for her of well, Jacqueline, it's because you're naked. Well, but I'm only naked on these 2 small puts that are way far out of the money. They're not going to get, I'm not at risk for early assignment on any of them.
Right.
And she just fell over laughing. And, I thought this would be really great if this is entertaining to people, if the funny jargon. And I don't know why I didn't make up the jargon. That jargon existed long before I had any money to even start a trading account with. That jargon was already, that was actually the technical wording in the industry, the technical jargon. But if I can make it fun for people and entertaining and teach more people like yourself and like her and like Annette and Ray, now, there's going to be setbacks, trades don't always work out. Patterns do fall down. And when you have less than 25K to start out with, it is a motherfucker. It is the task of Sisyphus to get up to 25K. And it's damn near impossible if you don't have a stable income. UBI would definitely, change that.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially since I have to be at home to care for, a spouse that is elderly and has some severe health issues that,
and it's amazing. Just like, I heard these stories. Like I watched these Netflix series on dirty money, and there was like a thing where like people borrowed like $50 or like they like these payday loan places, and they thought they had like one more payment to get rid of their payday loan.
Yeah.
But it seemed, but it was like that one payment that they kept paying every month was actually the financial transaction fee that never went to the principal, and they didn't even understand how that worked. And then they're like, okay, this is my last payment. And then they're like, no, this is just the payment to renew the loan. You still owe us all that principal. They're like, what?
Yeah, they would have been better off going to a fucking loan shark from the mafia.
Right, yeah.
I mean, at least those guys had some sense of honor. I mean, these pieces of shit. This is why Bernie Sanders did rail against these guys. And that's not a bad thing. I mean, to do shit like that, to gouge people, that's just not cool. I'm not against anybody getting rich. I'm not against anybody making a profit. I am against people saying, look, I have a right to get rich at the expense of other people's lives and the lives of their kids or their families or their loved ones or their friends. That's not fucking cool.
Oh, that's basically what Jordan Belfort did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like when I saw the movie The Big Short, it's like the guys who did make out, they were like outsiders. They were social outcasts. They were looked down on. You had Dr. Mike Curry, who had a glass eye, who was socially awkward, and he listened to heavy metal and walked around barefoot in his office. And people took him for a joke. Well, he wasn't no fucking joke, You had guys like what the hell's his name? I forget his real name. He had a different name in the movie. This character was portrayed by a different name in the movie. But he was a guy who had his own hedge fund who had to operate under the umbrella of Morgan Stanley. The guy who had the mathematical analyst named Vinny who had the temper, who said to that guy from Deutsche Bank, yeah, how much are you fucking us? I want to know how much you're fucking us, Vinny's like, I could relate to Vinny. He got right to the point. He's like, I'm not saying we don't want it. I just want to know how badly you're fucking us,
Right, yeah.
And the guy's like, I'm not fucking you. I'm making love to you. You get the sundae, I get the cherry, but you get the whole sundae. And it's like, I cheer for underdogs who make it. I really get happy when somebody who life and who society has shit on mercilessly for decades gets to make it. You know,
Right.
I rejoice in that. I don't begrudge that. You know, that's why I want to see everybody have a floor, because, you know, failing at something or making a mistake, if it's not a capital crime, if it's not a felony that's considered a capital crime, then you shouldn't have to be slapped with a capital sentence of death from destitution with no way up and no hope. I mean, you know, I think that's what really turned me on about Andrew Yang and made me sit there and re-examine everything that I thought I had believed for years. I mean, I was a socialist,
and that's why. And then when I watched, you know, ever since I like graduated from my education, I'd be more of like a federal jobs guarantee guy. I would be like, okay, yeah, I'm like, are you kidding me? Like I applied to like, you know, most jobs. I'm like, I don't care. I want to stop studying because studying was boring and I just want to work. And then I kept applying, and then when I did kind of like get work, that it's like you could have been a high school dropout anyway, and here I am. I'm like, oh,
yeah,
okay,
like,
well, yeah, and then I'm like, well, you know what? At least, you know, I'm working to earn, and then I felt good, and then like all of a sudden, like the job became like boring, and you know, there's a part where like Karl Marx talks about like work and alienation, where it's like work is only really worth something if you can see like, what is this doing, you know, after I'm done with the work, you know, because some people, it's like when you work, it's like you don't know, like, is this affecting like the planet or people and like contributing to society, or is this just adding to some, you know, mystical bottom line and everybody's just like unhealthier or unhappier because of it, because they can't tell right.
Let's look at what really counts as work. I mean, for decades, women had no opportunities outside of becoming a nun, a prostitute, or getting married and being economically supported, they hoped, by husbands who hopefully wouldn't abandon them, because a marriage license was never any guarantee.
Right.
And they worked as unpaid caregivers all their lives, but their unpaid labor, and this was often the only option available to some of the poorest and most disadvantaged women. Okay. And then it's like later on in their later years in life, they're left to suffer in destitution in what should have been their
what a load of crap. And
society would not even be able to exist. There wouldn't even be a society if not for all the unpaid work
who would raise the kids.
It was mostly done by women. And
then when I finally like got like not so awesome work, and I was working at it, and then I got bored, and then I'm like, okay, then what the hell is the federal jobs guarantee if it's just going to be like shitty jobs for everyone, and you should just be happy about that. That was the part that like really pissed me off.
Well, what pissed me off about is when I realized how the promoters of it actually lied and engaged in a serious amount of academic fraud to push it.
Right.
That the federal jobs guarantee would have not only eliminated what safety, well, we don't even really have a legit safety net anymore, thanks to welfare reform, but it would have also eliminated anybody's right to unemployment, because if you didn't have a job, you know, it's like, well, your choice of being able to survive if your business failed was you go to work for minimum wage at $15 an hour at whatever federal jobs guarantee job that some decision makers that, you know, you didn't elect to have control over your fucking life get to decide for you that this is what is being decided is available to you. And if your coworkers are abusive shit stains, because let's face it, workplace bullying is a really big problem. A lot of people won't talk about that, but it is. You know, a lot of people have suffered what's known as constructive discharge, which means they were pushed out of their jobs due to various, you know, forms of workplace bullying. And the federal jobs guarantee, you know, has no had no way to take that into account or account for that. But what it would have done is it would have been the Trojan horse that they were accusing Yang Gang and Andrew Yang of pushing with UBI. I mean, that's just the level of dishonesty there that really was at play. And when I saw that, I was like, oh, wait a minute. This is gross. Yeah.
Right, yeah. It was all projection on their part.
Yeah.
And
it's like,
yeah.
And it's like these were guys that these were, like people that were pushing that, and they were pushing it with no UBI. They were pushing it without any acknowledgement or recognition of unpaid labor that should count as work deserving of remuneration. Andrew Yang himself said, and I'm quoting him, he said, well, my wife Evelyn doesn't deserve to be poor for the important work she's doing with our 2 boys, while other women across this country don't deserve to be poor either.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like nobody else who fancied themselves as self-styled progressives even acknowledged that. Because for centuries, unpaid women's work was considered nothing, was doing nothing, contributing no value. And yet no society on earth would exist without it. No economy on earth, whether capitalist, socialist, or a hybrid of the two,
Mm-hmm.
would exist without it.
Right.
And it's like, you know what? I like this. And that's when I decided to burn the commie card. And then a month later, I actually had the balls to come out and say I burned the commie card, and told my fellow former comrades to go fuck themselves because they missed the plot. Where Marx was right about exploitation, he was missing 2 critical points. One point was the point that Mary Wollstonecraft made, who was before Marx's time. He actually kifed a lot of her work, by the way.
I never heard of her.
Yeah, she is the one who talked about the gender division of labor and really got into detail about, unpaid women's work. But where the Marxists really lost the plot is, in order for capital to exist to exploit those without capital, there first had to be a government-backed appropriation of or definition of private property. And this is where the Georgists, who are pretty much left-leaning libertarians for the most part, where the Georgists were saying, well, no, if it wasn't for our exclusion from the natural resources of the earth, which nobody created, and therefore nobody has the right to exclude others from, there wouldn't be capital. And I'm thinking, oh my God, this makes too much sense. I really like this. And that's when UBI really started to make even more sense to me. It's like, well, yeah, especially if we're getting into an era where automation, there is never going to be enough jobs to go around. Half
Period.
the jobs that were lost during COVID, what Andrew Yang was predicting would happen within 10 years, happened in a span of 10 weeks last year, and caught everybody in this country with our pants down. Except those of us who were paying attention, who were saying, could have had Yang, and what we were met with was, a mountain of shit and resistance from people who, would rather be part of the problem than part of the solution. And, I saw it, and I just thought it was such a tragedy that, things that, but it's like when we look at the Congress that did what it did, and we look at what happened with the administration that did what it did. Well, you know what? Our government is our elected officials, from Congress to the president, to the school board, to the city council. Okay, they're a reflection of who we are as a society. They were elected and put into office by people who voted. So, if we have stupid, selfish, cruel, sadistic fucksticks in government, well, that's because you have stupid, selfish, cruel fucksticks, that outnumber People who aren't that
I
way.
mean,
Who elected those fuckers and put them in office.
this is like this is the part that really gets me disgusting. It's like I see a magazine like this that has all these like technological, gadgets on it and talking about travel and talking about airships and all that stuff. I see countries like Japan and Singapore and Hong Kong with their like transport systems and their monorails and how easy it is to get around. Everyone's wearing masks even before COVID because like they respect their elderly and stuff like that. It's like they're moving towards Star Trek in like those Asian and European countries, and we're moving toward Mad Max being the shithole kind of place that we don't need to be. Like that's the part that really gets
and
me,
if you look at Dubai, which is granted, it's got its problems. I mean, with Princess Haya fleeing to London and one of the princesses being thought dead. Okay, they can't prove it either way. But Sheikh, what's his face, isn't a very nice guy. But other than that, you look at Dubai, and you look at they have air taxis there.
Wow.
I mean,
Sounds
and
like
women
fun.
can drive there. Women don't have to like wear burqas or anything. Dubai is in the UAE, the United Arab Emirates. Now, it'd be nice if, they didn't treat women so poorly. And if you consider how that female members of the royal house over there had to, flee and run away and fear their lives, how much worse is it for women going down the socioeconomic food chain? But, when you look at even Dubai, with what it has, and you look at these other countries like that you were talking about in your magazine, and Singapore and other Asian countries, because they actually have a sense of the common good. It's not considered an assault on their freedom. It's considered if you don't have these basic things, if you don't take care of people, then you don't really have freedom. You don't really have freedom, because what freedom is there when everybody is living in precarity and scarcity, and the entire economy is about to be permanently fucked into the ground?
Yeah,
because of people being assholes with the handling of this pandemic.
Right.
And it's like these same assholes are the same ones that voted for the fuck sticks in Congress that wouldn't help the people.
Right. It's like we're not a shining city on a hill. We're more like a flaming dumpster fire in the valley.
It's interesting that you said that, because they actually did a dumpster fire to celebrate New Year's. They actually lit a dumpster on fire.
There you go, right? Yeah.
2020.
Right? It's just like I mean it's pretty North Korean-ish of the United States to be, propagandizing as much as we are propagandizing. It's like and it's like we're like you got people in poverty and like they can't afford to like travel. So it's kind of like what North Korea is doing is like keeping their citizens insulated from the rest of the world. Is like if you're poor, you're not going to be able to afford the ticket to even get to a foreign country and see what's up.
If you're poor in America, you can't even afford high-speed internet or a computer. I mean, we're seeing how the digital divide is playing out with COVID. What COVID did, it didn't cause this crisis. COVID just ripped the facade off and showed the world, America's ass for what it is.
Yeah.
We've always had these problems, but COVID ripped the blinders off. I mean, we've had a digital divide for decades. Now with COVID, you've got kids that are going to be, left behind permanently and never have a chance, because the infrastructure does not exist where they live to have high-speed internet, and they don't have the money to afford a computer to do their homework. And the answer to that is not to force everything to reopen in the middle.
Oh, those kids should just get a job. They're lazy, right?
The solution is helicopter money with the UBI, with the $2,000 a month to get everybody through the pandemic so people can stay home and teach their kids, and also earmark money to provide the tools so that remote learning is possible.
Right. Well, here's where like I call some people like fucking shitheads is when they don't have the wherewithal.
Deservedly so.
Right, deservedly so, is where they don't have the wherewithal. It's like if somebody is in the middle of the ocean and the waves have kind of like taken them, out in. It's like when we do a search and rescue, we don't say that this person is too lazy to like rescue themselves. It's like they're out of breath because they can't struggle against the ocean. So we either take a helicopter out there, we take the lifeguard out there, and then when they get to dry land, they'll have the energy to do what they need to do with their life. So I'm looking at kind of like UBI is like we got a whole bunch of people that the waves have like taken out and out and out, and they can't like it's too much energy. So when you put those people in an environment where they can grow, they're gonna grow like that. And saying, oh, they're too lazy, we shouldn't go, and we lose the potential of these people that we let them drown. So when there's like a search and rescue operation, nobody says like, oh, those people are lazy, let's not like use the gas and the resources to like search for these people and rescue these people.
Right.
But then when there's someone in front of your fucking face who they just need a little bit of momentum, and then once they get that momentum, they're good to go, and we refuse to give that momentum, and we just say like, oh, it's a moral failing, that like I see that as like someone drowning out to sea and not sending the help.
Yeah, and the thing is like there's always this saying that I've heard that, oh well, capitalism's a rising tide that lifts all boats. No, it's not. Not without a social floor. Without a social floor, it's more like a rogue wave that deluges all except the biggest nuclear-powered Nimitz-class aircraft carriers.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes not even them. You know what a rogue wave is? It's a wave that just out of the surface, it's when two opposing waves in the ocean come together from opposite directions and form one big one out of nowhere. And rogue waves, they get like a 90 to 150 feet high.
Okay? Yeah.
There is no way that anybody, I mean, the movie The Poseidon Adventure was based on a rogue wave, capsizing a luxury liner. Well, rogue waves have hit and done damage to oil rigs. Okay. And for many, many decades, people used to write this phenomenon off as mariner's tales. But all you really need is a basic rudimentary background in physics to understand wave propagation theory that, no, this wasn't bullshit. This was very highly likely because wave mechanics, whether you're talking about electromagnetic waves or whether you're talking about waves in the water, when you have, two waves that come together, from opposite directions and, go up, you have a what's called a rogue wave, and it forms a depression in the surface of the ocean, that around it, those things will come up. There's no way to predict that. They can come up out of nowhere.
Right.
And without UBI, okay, everybody, from those who have nothing but a life jacket to those who are on the biggest nuclear-powered Nimitz-class aircraft carriers, okay, are left at the mercy of whether or not they get deluged by a rogue wave.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yeah.
I mean, it's
100%.
This should be common sense, and nobody should really be begrudging someone else. I don't like it when privileged people begrudge the less fortunate who haven't been lucky in life, a basic floor to live decently. But I also don't like the other argument either. The argument that I've seen come from the left, usually from the left, or from the pseudo left. I mean, what miserably passes for left in this country leaves much to be desired because they're so busy ripping off each other's faces than solving problems. It's just pathetic. But the other argument is well, the middle class on up doesn't need this money, but the poor do. We should target it. Well, the problem is when you make something targeted, you have to implement something known as means testing. Now, means testing means you know, that you are going to be excluding a hell of a lot of poor people, because there's a lot more people in poverty in this country at this point than there are people who are living comfortably, who are middle class on up. When you've got 70% of this country or more, that I'd say 80% now, that can't weather a $400 unexpected emergency, that don't have any stable income, that can't even break into the gig economy because of not being young and aesthetically pleasing to look at, and not, you know, being able to break in as a YouTuber because of that, or break in as a freelance worker on the gig platforms because of not having, you know, that established social network to provide, you know, positive reviews to at least give them a boost and a start. You know, there's a lot of people that have been permanently locked out. And what we gain by keeping people locked out? Well, I'll tell you what we gain is poverty moves upward. Poverty, you know, eventually is like that rogue wave that will deluge all but the largest nuclear powered aircraft carrier boats. Okay.
Right.
And it's like, is that really,
That's just stupid.
Is, you know, it's, you know, anybody who's okay with that
is a fucking idiot.
Yeah, they're an asshole. They're an asshole.
Yeah.
You want to be arrested for possession of brains with intent to use. I'm sorry.
Right, and you know what it reminds me of when you said that is, we remember when we saw that Trump boat parade and the smaller boats sank. It's like they're celebrating in their own destruction.
Yes, it's like in the movie Hannibal. For anybody who's never seen that, it was like the middle class voting for policies that punish the poor, thinking that they would get more somehow and become more prosperous and get to become rich if they did so. It reminded me of a scene from Hannibal where Agent Krenler is fed his own brain by Hannibal. When, you know, Julianne Moore, who plays Clarice Starling in the movie Hannibal, she's sitting there at the table and she's, you know, trying not to throw up. And this guy, Agent Krenler, you know, his skull was like sawed so Hannibal could just lift it off, and he's sauteing bits of the guy's brain right in front of him and feeding it to him. And he doesn't even realize he's eating his own brain. And he says, "Oh, wow, man, this tastes pretty good." Well, that reminds me of how privileged people have been voting in this country, and now they're wondering why they're precarious now. It's like, yeah, congratulations. Welcome to Agent Krenler's last meal, you assholes. Now you're ready to get on the right side of shit and work for a something better, a society that is centered.
Like, I honestly thought like 2 months into the pandemic that they'll be like, okay, like that's it, UBI, we're all gonna be like fighting for it, like this makes zero sense. But then, like, you got people who like are out of a job saying like, no, why? Like, this fucking idiot. Holy crap. Like, yeah,
I saw people who were getting PUA money who were objecting to UBI. They were like, well, we're the ones who need money, not the people who have jobs. And it's like, guess what? No, everybody, unless they are in the top 10th of the top 1%, everybody needs this money. And it's not based on need. It's based on the fact that a social floor establishes a firm foundation that nobody will fall below this level. That if you're not lucky, it doesn't mean it costs you your life, or that you have to suffer for, you know, and your family suffers for the next 3-4 generations just because you weren't lucky, you know? And when I say lucky, I mean anybody can be slapped with a major medical shit sandwich. And if you don't have 10 grand laying or 10 million laying around in cash, disposable 10 million, okay? You know, all you need is to get hit with one major medical shit sandwich. You know, and you're out on the street with no hope. And after, you know, you reach a certain age, fewer and fewer opportunities will be available to you because of age. Right. And opportunities have a shelf life.
This
And it's like for anybody to be okay with that kind of a setup.
It's like this country is nothing but like one big shit sandwich factory.
Well, it's like I said in my Facebook post. I said, we don't have a society, we don't have a legit government. What we have is one big fat money laundering scheme for the already privileged, with a military to protect that scam.
Right. Except like Ojeda, because he's been in the military and he's like seen the scam and he doesn't want to be a part of it anymore. So like,
there's more and more people in the military that are waking up and saying, this isn't what I signed on for.
Right. Yeah.
But, I mean,
it's just a matter of time. But I really think that like, but this 600 got to people like this. I don't know if you've seen it yet, but like,
not really, because I still wasn't able to update on my account on the IRS site to have it electronically deposited. I still wasn't able to, get that portal to work for me. So I'm stuck waiting for a paper check again.
Yeah.
That's okay. I know it's coming, but it's still, it's coming.
So it's still, but just like the objections to like, this will be too complicated, or like this will like, this is the one thing that the government does well. This is the one thing, like Andrew said, the one thing that they do and easily is just like is just like their paperwork. They suck at everything else.
Yeah, and the thing is that everybody does really need this money, whether they are unemployed or whether they had a $100,000 a year job, because all it takes is one thing to go horribly wrong, like a pandemic. Like this. I mean,
the people in like the travel, traveling and live events, like they're just like wiped out from the get-go. Like that's it. They could have been doing like 200,000 in 1 year and just
boom, a friend of ours in Yangang, Angelo, that's what he did. He had a business. He was starting to get it off the ground and it was becoming successful. Bam, COVID hit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what was really sad is that, he had employees and, and it's like, well, but he couldn't get PUA money for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of people who, because of means testing, when you implement means testing, you're not excluding those who quote, don't need it, because those who don't need the money are not the majority of those applying for it. Well, who's being excluded is usually 99% of the time are some of the people who are the most vulnerable and need help the most.
And not even I know a lady in Kentucky who applied for these unemployment things, and these systems, like sometimes they just don't even work.
Oh no, I mean I have a PUA claim that was never acted on.
Yeah.
Never resolved.
Right.
That I had opened back in October.
Right.
And it's like, okay. That's that is 12 to 15 grand. That would have made a world of difference in my family's life. It would have meant having a car. Do you know that because not having a car and living in an area without public transport, I got exactly no medical care as a diabetic this year, except for having, insulin mailed to me by CVS. But other than that, I didn't get my endocrinologist appointment. I didn't get my primary care visit. I didn't get to go do my blood work. None of that shit that I need done as somebody who is a medically at-risk person that I need for ongoing doctor's care for the rest of my life, since there's no cure for diabetes. Mm-hmm. I can and don't confuse well managed for reversal or cure. Mm-hmm. Type 2, you can manage it to a point, but you're never a non-diabetic again.
Right. Yeah.
It's non-diabetic. You are always at risk of blood sugar spikes. You're always at risk for your own body attacking you, basically, because it's an autoimmune disease. Mm-hmm. And it's like, you can do your best to control it and keep it in remission. if you're type 2, but there's no cure. So it's like not being able to get that PUA thing being held up for me meant the difference between me being able to get a car that was reliable, that I could get the medical care I need. Because okay, I've got, Medicaid, and when you have a chronic disease, you can pretty much make it up into middle class and still qualify to receive it if you have a chronic disease, because of how much and how expensive a disease like diabetes really is. Most people don't realize this, but
right. So the people who paid into the system legitimately and like have a claim to money are being stolen from.
Yeah.
With these mean testing, because like, can you go into a store and like have your credit card decline or something and just like take the stuff anyway and just say like, oh, I had a little error in my system, I didn't seem to pay you the money, that was an error in my system.
What was really a hoot before one or two angels within Yang Gang really stepped up and helped in a huge way, is I was offered food stamps that I could not use because I had no way to get to the stores to buy food because of not having a car. Right. And there's no public transport where I live. And we have nobody to help us with rides. I can occasionally get the neighbor to give us a ride once in a blue moon, but never during hours that I could get medical care. I mean, I can get to the supermarket on a Sunday once in a while.
Right.
But, other than that, they didn't even accept food stamps on the on Instacart, which
this will just be great. Like
until 2 weeks ago.
Next time,
a year into this is why it's like, no. Why don't we just get rid of SNAP, get rid of WIC, and just instead supplant those means tested programs that leave you feeling like eating a goddamn bullet just for needing help, and instead give everybody a UBI.
Right.
And
what about like Wheels on Wheels? Is there anything like that in Pennsylvania?
Oh no, those that program had so many funding cuts that even our 88-year-old neighbor down the street, who before we lost our vehicle, to hard times, to bad luck. Okay, things didn't go great for us, and we lost our vehicle to repossession. This is before COVID hit. We used to take her, Mary, to the store so she could buy groceries, because she, her son, she had one kid, a son who died in his late 60s. She has a disabled tenant who can't drive because the tenant is blind. Okay, can't drive. So we used to take Mary to get food. We used to take her to the store so she could use her, she could get food. She gets a widow's benefit of less than $500 a month, Social Security widow's survivor benefit. That's like 55% of what her late husband used to get. She has a duplex where she has a tenant upstairs, but that just basically barely covers the utilities for the duplex.
Right.
It doesn't give her money
and
clothing or anything.
It's
so
like
we lost our vehicle. We couldn't take her to the store. So I was up my lawmakers' asses like a fucking Fleet Cinema. No, like a case of Fleet Cinemas about this. Because it's like, okay, I had some help from like you and, a couple other angels in Yang Gang who helped. So at least I could buy food with money, because I couldn't use the food stamps that I was offered while I was awaiting my PUA thing. I could not use my food stamps on Instacart, and that was the only way I had of getting groceries. And as a diabetic, I can't take my insulin without food. And it has to be diabetic-friendly food, not just any old thing. But I was up my lawmakers' asses since March about this, that, no, instead of increasing SNAP benefits, just give everybody money, because these platforms, like for getting food and getting to medical appointments, you can't use the food stamps card on that platform to get food. And if you don't have a car in many places, you can't get to the food banks. Like you saw on the news, you saw lines of cars for miles lining up, queuing up to go to food banks down in Texas. Well, those are people who at least were still lucky to have a car. Look at all the people in poverty who had already lost everything, who didn't even have cars, whose cars got repoed,
Right.
you know, because of not having incomes.
And then that's like so stupid that like Trump had the nerve to like go over there and be like, oh, I wasn't coming here, you know, like before the pandemic. Like I bet your neighbors would have liked to punch him in the face for just like
Well,
saying
I
that.
mean, my neighbors are kind of weird, and I'm gonna just say this: anybody who has 3 sons, all of them named Matt, I'm not gonna go there. But it's like, you know, some of them are Trump voters, some of them are not.
Yeah.
But it's like, you know what?
But what did they think? That's funny. Like what did they kind of think of him, like coming over there and saying like he didn't even want to come to a place like that because he didn't think it was cool enough.
They were more pissed off that, you know, he let them down without fulfilling the promise of, you know, having hope for a better economic future.
All right, you guys, we're coming up on a 4-hour mark.
Yeah, marathon. But I came here in like an hour and 19 minutes, I think. But yeah. But yeah. Like I think but Jacqueline, you should definitely try to get on Ojetta's show. That would be pretty cool. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, the Yang Gang friend who sent me this microphone, it's a directional mic, and I hope it works okay. I don't know if you guys can hear me good, but I hope
it's fine.
I'm actually thinking of putting up another thing, and I'm not one for like, because I'm not young and attractive looking, conventionally attractive looking, so I know that most people will just automatically ignore anything I put up. They don't want to see a 53-year-old physically unattractive looking lady. They want to see, you know, young, attractive looking people.
But they like people, even if you're ugly or whatever. They just like people who are like.
Ariel, but I'm not ugly, and my husband would take exception with you with that. So would this cougar hunter who was. Like,
I was
that story.
No. Like I'm just saying, even whatever people are, it doesn't matter. Like they like people who have I was just saying in general, who have like a fierce, who have like a fierce voice, or like, or they like, people like getting riled up no matter what you look like.
I don't know, man. I mean, I tend to piss people off simply by telling the truth without apology. Well, and giving exactly 0 fucks about their feels.
Some people like that.
You know, so, and it's like Jimmy Dore can get away with that.
Okay,
I can't.
Yeah. Okay.
Listen. One of my favorite song lyrics goes like this, you guys. It's that song Ramblin' Man. And it goes, I ain't good looking, but you know I ain't shy. Ain't afraid to look a girl right in the eye. I think that line is so hot. You know, it's true. Like it's like there's like a confidence that you have that I think is sexy, or that people have, you know. It doesn't have.
Well,
he's not good looking, but he's not shy, you know.
Hunter from another country like that. On my Facebook list, who's been hitting me up and flirting with me, that I've been kind of like not responding to for the past 8 months. I think he's got the COVID hornies or something. I tried to tell him, look, you know, dude, nah. But it's like, you know what? I'd be a bald-faced liar. I'd be a bald-faced liar if I didn't admit that as a 53-year-old woman, some 29-year-old guy who's not bad looking, telling me he finds me hot, I would be a bald-faced liar if I didn't say I took that as a compliment. I mean, I don't know any red-blooded woman who doesn't mind being considered, attractive. You know, I mean, whether or not you act on is a different story, but you know, I don't do the Oedipus thing.
Probably like in another state anyway or something.
Well, no, this guy's from another country. He actually lives in another country.
Yeah. So yeah.
He was like, "You got great boobs." It's like, I know, thank you, but I'm not a big fan.
Yeah, there are all sorts.
All right, I'm going to start putting our contact information up real quick, and then we can all start to say goodbye. I'm pretty sure I have everybody's, so there's all mine stuff. You guys, I pay for this StreamYard. I pay money for it. So if anybody watching this feels like supporting our cause, I put my Cash App, which is $Yang Gang for life. The Patreon that is listed on the Yang Gang report does not go to me. So don't donate to that Patreon if you're trying to get money to come to me. That money would go into somebody else's pocket, and I'd never see it. Okay. So anyway, for right now, use my Cash App, or you can always send me money through my Facebook Messenger because I accept that. So donations are fantastic. Here is Ariel's information. You can find him on YouTube and Twitter. And I'm nearly positive I've got a Jacqueline one. I thought I did. Well, I don't think I have one for you, Jacqueline. I think it's been too long since you've been on, so I don't have one for you. So I will make one for you for next time.
Are you talking about a Cash App?
Oh no, like for
just contact.
Well, no, not necessarily. Just one of these little banner things that are running at the bottom of the screen. You know?
Oh, okay.
Like that gives all of our information. Yeah. Okay. So if you had, like I would just make like a ticket, what do you call it? A ticker tape for you with all of your information. But we can do that afterwards, and then next time you come on screen with me, I'll have one for you. I just added my Cash App one to mine today.
Okay.
Okie Smokey. You guys, thank you so much for coming on.
I'm researching the stuff on Fiverr because it's like, you know what? I could probably, because I tried to get Patreon support for teaching trading, but that's not really the correct platform, I don't think, for that kind of stuff. But Fiverr looks like, I mean, there's other traders on there who actually offer courses. A lot of them are guys that do Forex, and these are guys that have big accounts, though, so they're not really oriented towards small account holders. But I'm thinking, what the fuck? Why not? Why not me?
Yeah.
Because I know this stuff, and
all right,
why not me? Put it up. I'll start it out at like really reasonable, like $25 or something for a class. First class is free, and you get a 15-minute session that's free, and then any more than that, it's like $25 for a certain level, and then a next level might be $45, and that'll be it. And you can download material. I have to see how that works. So with the videos and doing screencasts for to do stuff on Fiverr, to offer really good materials,
Cool.
I really like to do that. But something where they can just get the materials and learn at their own pace and stuff. And if they have questions, they can reach out by email.
Cool. All right. Well, those are nice pets you got in there.
We're gonna hang out now.
See you.
Huh?
Oh, I said I like the pets that you have.
Oh, thank you. Those are just two. We have 12 altogether. 12 animals.
Cool. Oh, yeah.
But you guys got to see two of them tonight. So anyway, thank you for hanging out.
I got one.
I'm going to try to do this.
Bipedal.
Yes.
Does bipedal count? Does a bipedal pet count?
I'm trying to shut this down. Listen, I'm trying to shut this down at 4 hours. I'm going to try to do this almost every day, but not a 4-hour marathon. My whole plan today was just to get on and look at Twitter and look at Yang in the news and maybe watch some YouTube together or something like that. The whole thing got hijacked by it just like came out of left field, and admittedly I was not ready for it. So I really appreciate you guys jumping in and helping me out because I was just getting pissed off.
Yeah, you can block them.
You're too nice to say things that I'm not. Okay, I'm not overly nice.
All right, cool.
Shy about.
Yeah, no, I'm really glad you did. I needed the reinforcement.
Good.
Cool.
No, you got to keep your space. That's
good night, you guys. We'll see you next
night. See you.